The Empire Strikes Back was released in 1980 as one of the most anticipated movies ever made. The second entry in the Star Wars saga and continuing Luke Skywalker's journey to becoming a Jedi Knight, the film was a box office smash and is now acclaimed as one of the great movie sequels. My name's John, and with me today are Matt.
Hello, what have we here?
And Westy.
That can't be! That's impossible!
Laugh it up, fuzzball, because all the right movies are back with George Lucas to talk the Skywalkers, snowspeeders and smooth-talking scoundrels. And you thought we smelled bad on the outside. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a bunch of stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herders, obviously, and a podcast on classic and hit films. Today, we've been here before, and we're back in a galaxy far, far away to talk one of the biggest and most successful movie sequels ever made in The Empire Strikes Back.
Lovely.
Never tell us the odds, but this was always going to happen, right?
Oh, of course it was. How could it not? How could it not?
Before we head to Hoth, though, let's have a chat about Patreon, should we?
We should.
If you're a fan of what we do on this, our classic podcast, and would like us to keep doing it, please help support us do that by becoming an All the Right Movies patron. Patrons gain access to Patreon-only podcast shows and access to our full archive of classic episodes like this one. The archive's growing all the time, and right now there are over 40 further classic episodes in there. If you're listening to this, you probably like Star Wars.
Yep.
That's in there. Also, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Terminator, The Godfather, Alien, all in there and more. An archive of Super Star Destroyer I couldn't take down there, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Help us navigate the asteroid field by becoming a patron.
Yep. So to find out more and sign up, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies. Also, some further news. We now have a growing YouTube channel full of video content with more to come. There are top 10 videos, reviews of new movies like The Batman by the three of us, and Luke has interviewed Curtis Stigers, the godfather of jazz, about his favourite films as well.
Yep,
he did.
We're also going to be critiquing some older classics on there too, which would be great. Speaking of Star Wars, I think the three of us are going to start with The Phantom Menace, right? That'll be interesting.
I can't believe I've got to watch that again.
I know, I don't know why I agreed to that.
We want to grow the channel as much as possible, so if you've not yet, please subscribe and share it too. For now, though, it's back to one of the good Star Wars films.
Yes.
It's The Empire Strikes Back, so why are we talking about it? Westy?
Is it the best Star Wars film? I think it might be.
I think so.
I think it might be. I keep bouncing around, but I'm not too sure. I watched it again this week, and I'm like, this is definitely the best Star Wars film. I absolutely adore it. I love it. I remember watching it when I don't even know how old I was when I saw this one, and remember thinking that, wow, that's not a happy ending. This is miserable. I love this.
Right up your street.
This is I think it was my introduction to that real kind of like
Misery.
that misery of cinema, of like how nothing works out at the end, and Disney films can you can just forget about them. I'm not interested in them anymore. This is what I want more of, and I think this is what turned us on to that whole kind of emotion in cinema, and I think it has a real depth and it has a real emotion, even though it's a sci-fi film, even though it's a Star Wars film, but still, I mean, it has so many themes and has so many things that it wants to say, and I think it says them really, really well. I think it's really well acted, really well directed, really well shot. And not only one of my favourite Star Wars films, if not my favourite Star Wars film, but one of my favourite films. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's always been there for me, Empire. I remember seeing it many, many times, but have no memory of seeing it for the first time because I would have been too young.
Yeah.
I mean, what's there to say? Everyone's seen it. Its influence is difficult to overstate. It's as popular today as it's ever been. So I'm looking forward to the three of us getting into all of that and explaining why we think it's endured so long.
Yep.
It's generally regarded as one of the great movie sequels, the greatest movie sequel by many. So we'll be talking about that. And there's so much other stuff. George Lucas is always interesting to talk about. Westy, you're a huge fan of the big fella, obviously.
Big fan. Yep, couldn't direct traffic.
Astonishing work again by ILM on the visual effects. One of the most famous plot twists in the narrative. A cultural phenomenon of a film. So, yeah, the world record for the longest podcast is 36 hours. We've got that in our sights, yeah.
30,
we can do
37
that. We can
easy.
do that.
I've cancelled all plans for the next 3 days.
And Matt, why do you want to about The Empire Strikes Back?
It is the first Star Wars film I remember watching. I was very young, and I've just got this memory of being in the kitchen at home and watching on the tiny little portable TV we had there.
Right.
And I was maybe 4, something like that. I just remember being
Wow,
terrified.
dragged up you like man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I just remember being terrified of the AT-ATs because they were so big and
Yeah.
stomping all over the guys, and I knew they were the good guys. And the whole thing was scary. It just makes perfect sense to cover it. We've done Star Wars, so why not do, the best sequel? And it just comes up time and time again whenever other franchises you hear the directors or the actors involved make a sequel and they go, oh yeah, this one is the Empire Strikes Back of whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's still such a huge touchstone. And it's a fact that as a sequel, it doesn't go anywhere you expect it to. It's a constantly surprising film. We'll get into all that. It's a film of like near constant defeat without any resolution, and yet it still works as a film. And it's the film that really, for me, it defines this universe, and it introduces so much of what Star Wars actually is in terms of characters and concepts. It's going to be a great one to do.
So, The Empire Strikes Back was produced by Lucasfilm, distributed by 20th Century Fox, and released on May the 21st, 1980. Filmed on location in Finns, Norway, and at Elstree Studios, England, it was directed by Irvin Kershner, written by George Lucas, Lee Brackett, and Lawrence Kasdan, and it stars Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Leia Organa, Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, David Prowse as Darth Vader, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Kenny Baker as R2-D2, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, and Frank Oz as Yoda.
There's not one you could leave out, is there?
I know. I know.
All amazing.
Exactly. Right, should we do it then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. Tones at the ready. Look out for Wampas. We're bringing you the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back.
The beginning.
John Williams, come on.
Yeah, ripping off the Batman there.
We'll get to him, obviously. Always time for Williams, of course.
Yeah.
The first act of Empire takes place entirely on the ice planet of Hoth, as the rebels hide out at Echo Base from the Empire, and we've got a couple of big sequences to get into. The Battle of Hoth, where the Empire launch a full-scale assault on the rebels, is coming, but before that, we're with our lead, Luke Skywalker, as he comes a cropper against a Wampa monster. After being reintroduced to our old buddies Luke and Han Solo, Luke is taken by a Wampa, and when he doesn't report back to base, Han sets out to find him. This sequence brings us Tauntaun, snow monsters, Luke using the Force, and the ghostly appearance of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Man is the warmest place to hide, according to John Carpenter. But he didn't have a Tauntaun, did he? How does it feel to be back with Luke and Han, Westy?
It feels great to be back, and it's so nice when you hear Han's voice over the radio. And it's like, "Hello, buddy." He's like,
Yeah, I love it.
It's like, yes, I'm gonna cry. It's just like, yeah, my friends are back together. This is amazing. And I love that whole landscape. I love the idea of Hoth. I love the idea of like that ice planet. It is great. I mean, it's like half an hour, 40 minutes, isn't it, at Hoth? It doesn't feel like it whatsoever. It's just, you're there for like most of the definitely the opening of the whole film. But it moves to so many different places. But I just find this just so interesting. But I also love how angry Han Solo is at the opening of this film. He's angry all the way through. Like, nothing makes him happy at all. He's happy to be frozen in carbonite, to be fair. He's like, oh, thank God. Like, it's just like a relief. But this is just, no, it's great. I love the Wampa attack. I love the way that comes from nowhere. All the probes being sent down, that's really cool. That's really interesting. You have this sense of like impending doom, and you have all the generals with like cough sweets just gaffer taped to the tops, which is fantastic. It's just like, is that a bunch of strepsils?
So what they are? Wow.
Yeah, cough sweets.
Amazing. Never know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like that's really good, and it's just like, I don't know. I just really love the opening of the film. I think it's fantastic. It sets a scene. It brings the characters back. You see everyone you need to see when you need to see them. And yeah, it's great. That Wampa attack just comes from nowhere. What do you smell? Something? Boom! And then it just kills the top one. It's like straight. It's really graphic. So wow, is this a kid's film?
Is, yeah.
Great. No, it's not.
Whenever I see the first few seconds of this, I always get a sense of the excitement that must have been there for Star Wars fans to see this back in 1980. We get this great overhead shot of a figure riding on this weird creature. He takes his mask off, and it's Luke Skywalker. Great reveal. The costume design on both Luke and Han is fantastic, by the way. Especially Hans Parker.
When that hood comes down, you see that haircut, you're like, yes, beautiful.
My favourite thing about this whole sequence, though, is just how angry Han is.
Yeah.
Mostly for no reason. Having to go at everyone he talks to. He shouts at Chewie when he's doing his best fixing the Falcon. Then he goes into the control room and has a bust up with Leia. 3PO tries to tell him that Luke's missing, and Han has a pop at him, just puts his hand over his mouth.
Yeah.
Then he asks that officer if he's seen Luke and is really rude when he says he hasn't. Then when he gets on his Tauntaun, some other guy, just trying to help, says, "Sir, your Tauntaun will freeze before the first marker." And Han's like, "Then it'll see you in hell." Massive overreaction.
Why don't you go check? It's getting dark out there. What? All right, mate.
Getting everyone told.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Tauntauns are great. The Wombat looks great. I love that shot inside its cave where we see it sitting down eating some of that creature. Looks brilliant, that. And great to see all the characters again. Even if Han is so mad he could spit.
Yeah, he's so angry. It's great, man.
I really love the writing in how it re-establishes these characters, particularly Han and Leia, in the base, because straight away you can see their relationship has developed so much from the end of Star Wars, because as soon as he enters that control room, she is glaring daggers at him, which I find really funny. They've not said a thing to each other in the look she gives him.
I think that's just like art imitating life, though, to be fair, to some degree.
I think that's definitely fed into
Their
it.
real life relationship, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because she is really pissed off about something. But you also see it's that mix here. She is disappointed that he's leaving, both on a personal level and because we see here how important he is to the rebellion now. He is part of them and he's going to be a big miss. But I love how he isn't fooled. He knows why she's hurt, which is why he says, we need, what about you need? And I just love all that dialogue they have as they continue arguing into the corridor. So it's really funny when he calls her, "Yes, your highnessness." That's a great line. And that line, when she retorts, "I'd just as soon kiss a Wookiee." And it's great because having this proper domestic bust up in the corridor, and every other rebel is just walking past them, just doing the job, carrying supplies, getting on with what they need to do. No one's giving them the slightest bit of attention. This must just happen every single day, probably about 3 times a day. Also just having a big row in front of everyone. And everyone's just like, well, yeah, it's just them on it again.
When that guy walks through the middle of them, he's like, and then steps back, it's like,
Yeah, he's great.
So good. Yeah, it's
he's really funny.
All of the outdoor scenes on Hoth were filmed in Finns, a mountain village in Norway, and they had some issues when the area was hit by its biggest snowstorm in 100 years. Avalanches and everything.
Wow.
Classic Lucas, look that. Hanging over from the first film, the Brian De Palma curse.
Yeah.
Normally, that storm would have halted filming, but Irvin Kershner thought it was a chance to shoot the scene where Luke wanders through the snow after he's escaped the Wampas cave. He spoke to Mark Hamill, who said he would do it, and Kershner sent him out in the snow by himself while he stayed in the hotel and filmed him from there. Outrageous. Stitch Hamill right up.
The other thing I like, though, is how we get to see Obi-Wan as the Force go see for the first time, telling Luke to go to Dagobah, and then obviously you see him later on Dagobah itself with Yoda. But it wasn't even one day's work for Alec Guinness, so he turned up 8:30 in the morning, was done by 1 in the afternoon, and instead of taking a flat fee, he got 1/4 of a percentage point of the film's gross, which ended up making him millions. So
Amazing.
Not bad for half a day's work.
Yeah, paid millions for 4.5 hours work.
Yeah.
I tell you what, he's got some nerve slagging off Star Wars.
Yeah.
Not even bothered about looking like he was in the first film. Got a haircut, he looks really fresh.
No.
It was actually the final day of shooting as well that he turned up to do his scenes, so he stuck around for the rap party too.
Another first shot in the film after the opening crawl is a Star Destroyer sending probes out into space. The film originally started on Hoth, which I can see from Kershner's point of view, trying to make it a bit more of a drama, trying to make it a bit more of a kind of acceptable, less sci-fi. But that's how it was written and put together by Kershner, which I can see. But Lucas changed it in the edit, so we'll see the Star Destroyer first. So even though Lucas is taking a back seat, he's really not. He's like, Star Destroyer first. That's how we start the first one. That worked in 77. Do it again.
Yeah, that also explains why the opening shot of the Star Destroyer is a bit unremarkable, especially compared to the opening shot of Star Wars.
Just see the bottom of it. That's it. You don't see much of it at all.
So a good start to the film, and good to be back in the Star Wars universe then.
It's great to be back, totally.
Your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker.
Then I'll see you in hell.
After being introduced to our main characters again, it's not long before the huge spectacle comes in the Battle of Hoth, and that's what we're going to talk about for our second scene.
Are you all right? Yeah. I'm with you, rope leader.
Well, set harpoon. I'll cover for you.
Coming around.
Watch that crossfire, boys.
Having investigated and destroyed an Imperial probe droid, Han realises the Empire are on their way and the rebels begin an evacuation. The Empire turn up before they complete it though and launch a full-scale assault on the rebel base. The Battle of Hoth sequence brings us scout walkers, snow speeders, and one of the most iconic images from the series, AT-ATs. How's this for a battle sequence? Matt?
It's still just amazing, isn't it? But watching it as an adult, it's just so incredibly thrilling and exciting, and the flying through the legs and the tying the legs around, the tripping things over. It's just amazing. But the bits that stand out for me is when Luke's snow speeder gets hit and you get that really great behind the shoulder shot of him ploughing into the snow.
Yeah.
Because that always reminds me, if you've seen Foreign Correspondent, that Hitchcock film from the 40s.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a scene now where the heroes in that film, they're escaping in a plane and they get shot down and they crash into the sea, and you get and I think we've tweeted this actually, we get a very similar shot of them ploughing into the sea and the water bursts in the cabin. Because the thing is, that was like a really revolutionary special effect back at the time that Hitchcock did. And I just think there's no way that Kershner, who is a film teacher, doesn't know that. So I think
of course he does.
think this has to be a nod to Foreign Correspondent, which I really love.
It definitely has.
Yeah.
That's like saying Tarantino hasn't seen 8.5 Weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Probably watch it every day.
He's watching it now.
Full 8.5 Weeks.
But there's that bit after he crashes, and it does make me laugh because he gets out and there's an AT-AT stomping towards him, so he, gets his grappling hook out straight up there, cuts it open the lightsaber, grenade in, boom, brings it down. But does being a Jedi mean you can fall really high distances with no problem? Because that must be about 50 feet he falls. Well, it has to be, because, he lands on his feet and he just bounds away, no problems.
It's snowing, it's fine.
His kneecap should have exploded that, but no problem,
right.
just runs away. But, I love it all the same. It's really part of it. It's a fantastic sequence.
Yeah, I love the snow speeders that look in the rebels fly, especially the point of view shots from inside the snow speeders when they're flying in between the legs of the AT-ATs. Brilliant. I think the storytelling's superb, how we're cutting between the battle and the evacuation, where Han's trying to get Leia to the Falcon. But it's the AT-ATs for me. They just look fantastic. Yeah. The design is off the charts for them. Yeah. And the stop motion animation by ILM to make them move is incredible. That's some of the most realistic looking stop motion I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah.
The shot when you can see three AT-ATs at the same time on the screen and the snow speeders swooping in between them.
Yeah.
That looks great today, not just for 1980. Unbelievable. Do you know what AT-AT stands for?
All-terrain armored transport.
Of course you know.
Nerd.
Correct, it does.
Do you know what AT-ST stands for?
I don't.
Oh, is that scout transport?
Yeah, all-terrain scout transport, yeah. And there's one in Hoth that nobody mentions, but there's one in Hoth.
Yeah.
And Westy, what do you think of this sequence?
I think it's rubbish. No, of course not. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But then seeing the AT-ATs just coming just from like on the binoculars and they're just over there and you just think, oh God, that's terrifying. Yeah. And when Luke's running through to his snow speeder and he's got his helmet and he's kind of like pushing people out the way, and I thought to myself, that's what I want to do when I grow up. That's
push people out the way.
I know I just want to be a rebel and like run to me snow speeder on a Monday morning and just be like really up for it. But it didn't happen. But I always thought that's so cool. Imagine just doing that. Like when that's all you do. Like you fly a snow speeder and you've got like your mate in the back and it's like, yes. And no, I think the design of the snow speeders, I had that toy when I was a kid. It was absolutely fantastic. Just brilliant. I just love the way they've taken all of the fights that you've seen and all of the conflicts that you've seen from the first film from outer space to a real landscape that you can really understand. Yeah. And you're just like, wow, Star Wars is something else now.
Yeah, I can't think of many snow-based battle scenes. This is surely the most famous one, I think.
Where Eagles Day, probably.
Yeah. Inception.
Oh, yeah.
Inception, yeah, nice.
Well, if Westy did want to be a rebel, he should have joined the Norwegian mountain rescue skis, because that's who they're playing. The extras in the scene, they're playing all the rebels.
I still might.
Yes, still. Hey, mate, never give up on a dream. That's what I say. And for their participation, Lucas gave a donation to the Norwegian Red Cross.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Some of them guys are probably in the film longer than Alec Guinness.
They probably are.
All of them are.
Should have asked for $5 million.
There's no probably about it.
We also hear a Wilhelm scream in this sequence as well. For anyone that doesn't know, the Wilhelm scream is like a stock sound effect that's been around since the 50s. And it's in all the Star Wars films, I think.
Yep.
It sounds like this. So we had two in Empire. One's here when an AT-AT blows up the Rebel blaster dish. Do you know where the other one is?
Yeah.
I know where it is in the first one. I don't know where it is in this one.
Yeah, I don't know where the other one is in here.
In this one, it's when Han's frozen in carbonite and Chewie throws an Imperial officer off the ledge.
yes.
There's a real
okay.
scream.
Yeah.
So Luke's gunner in the Snowspeeder is called Dak, which is an unusual name, but you know where that comes from, what he's named after?
No, I don't.
No?
Bearing in mind that Lucas was involved.
Right.
So what does he name everything after? So anyway,
right, okay.
the
I see where
the
this is
assistant
going.
editor at Empire was called Dwayne Durham and had a dog called Dak.
course he
There
did.
you go. Indiana Jones, Chewbacca,
Yeah.
Dak.
Obsessed with people's dogs' names.
Everything after a dog. Imagine knowing like George Lucas and getting a new dog. You'd have so much pressure naming it.
Yeah. After Star Wars came out, all George Lucas' friends bought dogs.
Yeah, Westy, what's your dog called? I'm not telling you, George, because
As a battle sequence, though, this one's pretty great, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Would it help if I got out and pushed?
And that is Act 1 of The Empire Strikes Back. There's a lot more to come, of course, but with those two sequences, the one followed by the Battle of Hoth, Empire pretty much picks up where Star Wars left off in terms of top-class spectacle.
Yep, then takes it somewhere completely different.
Oh, yeah.
The director.
The director of The Empire Strikes Back was Irvin Kershner, known mostly in 1980 as an influential film lecturer at USC and the director of some quirky indie dramas like The Hoodlum Priest in 1961, The Flim Flam Man in 67, and Eyes of Laura Mars in 78, Empire was a big shift in his career path, to say the least.
Yeah, it was.
How do we think Irvin Kershner does as director of Empire Strikes Back? Westy?
I think Irvin Kershner really had a lot to do here, and he's pretty underrated for what he had to do. This is a big deal. This is a big gig.
Yeah.
This is like stress on toast. Like, how can you take over from what Lucas did in '77 and you've got 3 years later, you've got a script that's probably a little bit all over the place. You've got characters that don't really want to be there. You've got actors like Harrison Ford who pretty much don't want to be there. You've got to try and make it work. You've got to try and find the humour. You've got to take Star Wars somewhere else. Then you've got to make it twist and you've got to make it turn. And you've got to make it believable at the same time. And I think he does all that. I think he does an incredible job with this. I don't know if... And Lucas couldn't have done it. No. I'll be honest. I don't think he could have. But looking at Irvin Kershner's back catalogue, looking at what he's done, looking at where he comes from, I mean, he just really understands film. And he wanted to make this into a cinematic film, not just a throwaway sci-fi film. He wanted to do something deep with this and meaningful and have emotion, and it lives on, and I think it always will. And I think that's testament to him and having that real gutsy confidence to go against Lucas. I know Lucas changed lots of things in the edits and had a lot to say about the story, had a lot to say about the characters, but Irvin Kershner, I think, anchors this film and makes it something totally different, something that nobody else could have made it. And I think he deserves more credit than he gets for that. I think more people should know who Irvin Kershner is because of what he did on this film. It's a massive deal.
Yeah, considering his filmography before Empire, I mentioned some films there. It must have been one hell of a shock to people when Irvin Kershner was announced as a director of Star Wars 2. Like, who?
Yeah.
Who? Irvin who?
But based on that filmography, the stuff you'd expect him to handle well in Empire is the drama. I think the Han Leia love story, the Luke Vader family opera, and he does. Those beats all land massively and all feel powerful. But the part you might expect him to struggle with, the action, the spectacle, it doesn't show at all. He's got no experience with those. We talked about the Battle of Hoth, and it's brilliant. We will talk about the space battles and lightsaber fights, and they're brilliant. The tone's fantastic too. Everyone says Empire is the darkest Star Wars film, and it is. But to me, it's also the funniest Star Wars film. He balances the comedy and the drama incredibly well, which isn't easy to do. Just look at The Last Jedi, where the tone's all over the place to me. Here, it's rock solid. The comedy never undermines the drama, and that's Kershner. Can't have been easy with the maker and Lucas understandably checking everything over all the time, but clearly they work together really well. I think brilliant work by Irvin Kershner for me. He's made a stone cold classic of a film. What can you say?
Yeah. I think Kershner knew where he needed help with the action sequences and knew that George Lucas could come in and use that, and he used him for that, and then just said, hold on a second, I've got this bit.
Yeah. You
have that bit, I've got this bit. And it works so well together.
It does. And Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I just always try to put myself like in a George Lucas's headspace here. Like, he's made the biggest film of all time. He's got the sequel coming up, which he knows everyone's dying to see. He doesn't ask his best mate Spielberg to do it. He asks an old teacher to do it, who then turns in a film I would say 10 times better than what Lucas did. And like, what was Lucas's reaction to that? Like, what the hell? I think that explains so much of his career after this, because it's such a bizarre choice. But look how it turned out, because for someone with, like you say, John, zero experience in handling special effects sequences or action set pieces, he does put them together like Spielberg for me, that with just that confidence. And
I think this was a huge influence on Spielberg.
Oh,
yeah,
it was a huge influence.
Had to be, because every one of those scenes is so sharp and so fine-tuned. But I think you can tell this is a guy who teaches film, because I think he has looked at this in a very methodical way, in that he's taken the story apart and he understands the mechanics of storytelling, so he knows how to put this together in an interesting way, how to keep it tonally level all the way through. And I think he's also very, very much an actor's director as well, because I think every performance in this film is a vast improvement on what we get in Star Wars. And I think that's because Kershner, I don't think he cares for 1 minute about the stuff that Lucas cares about. I don't think he cares about the mythology. What he cares about is, how do I make this story work? How do I get these characters to function and give them a compelling story? And ultimately, if you compare this to Star Wars, I think what Lucas did there was, he took all these amazing characters, all these pieces, and he put them on the chessboard in the first film. But Lucas only knows how to play drafts. He only knows like basic moves, how to hop over things. Kershner knows how to play chess. And that's the difference between the two films for me.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, after the unprecedented success of Star Wars, a sequel was always going to happen, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
We talked on our Star Wars podcast episode about the deal Lucas made with 20th Century Fox to grant him control over merchandise and sequels. So in order to keep that control, Lucas decided to finance Empire himself. The initial budget for the film was $18 million, and Lucas bankrolled it with a combination of his own money he made from Star Wars and by taking out a bank loan. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? For a creative filmmaker, total independence from studios with full creative control over everything.
Yeah.
We also talked in our Star Wars podcast how the production of that film left Lucas hospitalised with stress and exhaustion, and because of that, he wasn't at all keen on directing Empire. So we started looking for a director. Irvin Kershner was hired pretty quickly, but before that, Lucas did consider another well-known director. Have you heard who that was? And it wasn't Spielberg.
Okay.
I'm sure I know this.
Coppola, because he was friends with Coppola, wasn't he?
Well, according to Paul Verhoeven,
No way.
he was invited for a meeting with Lucas and the producer Gary Kerr to talk about directing Empire. Verhoeven said that he turned up at this meeting with a cut of his new movie called Spetters, which is apparently like a sexually explicit version of Grease.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Verhoeven's director of Empire. Would that have worked, do you think?
It's really funny because Kershner directed RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
So that's... I don't think it would have been his hand getting chopped off. Yeah,
blood spurting out the end if it was.
It's half of his face off, just getting blown away. Clarence Bottiger is Darth Vader.
Well, after he screen spent as Lucas and Kurt, Verhoeven said that he never heard from them ever again.
Wow. Harsh. Kershner had been George Lucas' lecturer, actually, when he was a film student at USC, and Lucas regarded him as a mentor figure. So Kershner was already 57 at the time, but Lucas said to him, "You know everything a Hollywood director is supposed to know, but you're not Hollywood," which is brilliant, because that's true.
Yeah, he did turn Lucas down at first, though, because A, he said he had no interest in doing a special effects movie, and B, he thought Star Wars couldn't be topped anyway, but his agent had a conversation with him, and that's when he changed his mind.
I bet he did. Seeing the dollar signs his agent.
Ka-ching.
I mentioned the production issues Star Wars had there, and Empire wasn't without its problems either. Have you heard much about this?
I've heard a fair few, yeah. There is a fair few. Well, firstly, the production started late. Stanley Kubrick had filmed The Shining at Elstree, and a fire had burned the set down. Yeah. So this meant a start date for Empire was delayed by about 3 months.
Oh, right, yeah.
With it being a follow-up to Star Wars, they had to contend daily with newspapers trying to infiltrate the set. The Sun hired helicopters to fly over the set, taking pictures. Luckily, almost all of it was filmed indoors. Oh, the Sun, who buys that?
Yeah, I know plot leaks were a big deal on the film. Lucas kept tabs on the cast, and at one point you had a report which read, Harrison Ford, 1 leak, Carrie Fisher, 1 leak, David Prowse, 9 leaks. We'll get to Prowse and his plot leaks later on, yeah.
Really trustworthy Prowse, isn't he? How many things do you know? 9 things. You want to tell us all 9 things? Yep. And the production was further delayed by snowstorms, as you said, John, and bad planning by producer Gary Kurtz. And one of the second unit directors, John Barry, collapsed on the set and died from meningitis, which is really sad.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
A visit by Prince Charles, this had to be cancelled as well.
Good.
At least it wasn't Prince Andrew.
The Empire does strike back.
There's a story as well where Frank Oz, who voiced Yoda, was visited on the set by Harley Kokeless, who had worked with Oz as a director on The Muppet Show.
Right.
And Lucas grabbed
Yeah, yeah.
Kokeless on the set and instantly offered him the job of a second unit director because it was so far behind schedule.
Wow. Just getting everybody in there. Can you do it?
Yeah.
We're screwed here,
All
man.
hands to the pump.
Then, after production wrapped, Lucas saw the first cut and called it disastrous, which I would imagine means it would be amazing. And then Lucas re-edited the whole movie, to which it made it no better.
Yeah.
So they had to do extensive reshoots and go through post-production all again. Like, I want to see that first cut.
I'd love it.
I think that'll be something else, because it's just pure Kershner going, what do you think of this? And Lucas is like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Can I have more Star Destroyers, please?
Yeah. Well, the budget by this point had increased from $18 million to $30.5 million.
Wow,
And
there you go.
having paid for the film himself, Lucas was basically facing financial ruin again. He went back to 20th Century Fox and made a deal whereby they would finance the increase in budget for a bigger cut of profits. And that deal basically saved the film from catastrophe and Lucas from going insane, I would imagine.
Oh, what a stressful time. What a stressful time for everybody making The Empire Strikes Back.
Thing is about that deal, though, Lucas got a massive favour from Alan Ladd Jr., who at the time he was head of Fox, because what Ladd did was signed away all the sequel and merchandising rights to Lucas, who obviously, on his arse, was never going to say no. And then when the shareholders found that out, they kicked off. So Ladd had to leave his job. The knock-on effect was Lucas took his next project away, which was Raiders, which is why Raiders is a Paramount Pictures film, not 20th Century Fox.
Wow.
Right. Well, just for the better, just so you've got that mountain.
Yeah. Well, exactly, yeah.
What's he going to do? Spotlight transition. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan Ladd did Lucas one hell of a big favour there. All that as well because Kubrick burned the set of The Shining down. Crazy.
Well, he didn't personally.
Well, despite all those enormous problems, Empire was a massive success, and as director, Irvin Kershner gets a lot of the credit for that. No awards recognition. Do you know who won Best Director at the Oscars that year, Matt?
Yes, you do, Matt.
What year?
1980? 81?
So Robert Redford.
It was.
For Ordinary People.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Ordinary People.
Unbelievable. Take us on this, boy, man. Amazing.
Lucas did ask Kershner to return to direct Return of the Jedi, but he said no. Not surprised after all that.
No.
I'm not probably read the script.
How that as well.
Just wanted to go back teaching instead.
And actually, he only directed 2 more Hollywood films after Empire. Do you know what they were?
Right. Never Say Never Again. Was it Never Say Never Again before? It would have been, wasn't it? 60s. Man.
No, that was 1983. Sean Connery's final outing as Bond, yeah. So Never Say Never Again was
so
one.
Never Say Never Again and Robocop 2.
Robocop 2 in 1990, yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly, Irvin Kershner passed away in 2010, and when he did, George Lucas had this to say about him. The world has lost a great director. When I think of Kersh, I think of his warmth, his thoughtfulness, and his talent. Irvin Kershner was a true gentleman in every sense of the word.
Beautiful words.
It is.
The cast.
Irvin Kershner was a new addition to the Star Wars family, of course, but not so with the cast. All of the main cast returned from the first film, and we're going to talk about our 3 main heroes and main villain. Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and David Prowse and James Earl Jones as Darth Vader are all coming up, but we're going to start with our lead, Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker.
You have learned much, young one.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
Our protagonist returning from Star Wars, Luke goes on another adventure in Empire. From almost being eaten by a wampa through meeting Yoda and being trained in the ways of the Force, he ultimately loses his hand and a lightsaber duel to Darth Vader in the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
Worse than all that, though, he kisses his own sister.
Yeah. And is really proud about it as well.
Smug about it.
Hands behind the head.
What do we think of Luke Skywalker here and Mark Hamill in the role, Westy?
I think Hamill's great in this. I think he understands the assignment. He comes back. He's got a lot of problems because he's got to just deal with puppets for most of it. 80% of it. There's no one else to act with apart from Yoda, which is the bulk of the film for him. But when he is with other people, he has got that charisma. He has got that, he knows who Luke Skywalker is now, and so do we. And it's a very confident character, a very confident performance, and you want that in a hero.
Yeah.
And I think he absolutely nails it. I don't think any part of this. I mean, it could be so cheesy.
Yeah.
It could be so like over the top, and but when he's like saying no when he finds out, the twist, and you just yeah, you're there, you buy it. You just see how tired he is and how much he wants to be something that he doesn't understand what he wants to be. He doesn't understand where he comes from or what he's doing. There's a lot of confusion with the character, and I think he sells that really well. I think he sells the immaturity, that kind of lack of patience when he's with Yoda. I think that all really works. Yeah, I think he's fantastic. He's fantastic as Luke Skywalker. I would say it's a real kind of step up from the Luke we saw in A New Hope, and it's absolutely necessary and brilliant. I think he's great.
Yeah, when we covered Luke on our Star Wars episode, I was a little critical of him, saying he's too much of a goody two-shoes and a bit whiny and a bit one-note. Here, though, that's all but gone, and I think he's excellent. I mean, it's a continuation of his story, and it's a great story, and Luke is really well written here. As a character, he's much more fleshed out than he is in Star Wars. He's more conflicted mainly, but he's also a bit more selfish, a touch more arrogant, a bit more like a real person. And Mark Hamill playing him, I think he's brilliant. When I watch Star Wars, he's perfectly fine, but it doesn't surprise me that he didn't go on to have a big Hollywood career. Here, it kind of does. He's fantastic in the lightsaber duels and great in any scenes with Yoda and R2 where he is basically acting against puppets. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Luke here. The best the character has ever been for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And Matt, what about you and Luke?
Very much the same. I mean, it's like Hamill took extra acting lessons, isn't it, between Star Wars and this, because he's just so much better. And that sounds harsh, but I think I'm going to say essentially the same thing for the three leads, because it goes back to what I said about Kershner being an actor's director. I do think Kershner needs a bit of credit here as well, because I think the performance feels a lot more guided than it ever was by Lucas in Star Wars. But in terms of the writing, Lucas has got much more depth in which I think Hamill really needs, and he appreciates it. He's not the little kid that we saw 3 years previously. He has the weight of knowing that he has the Force and he can't control it, but he's not fully over it yet. He knows that people look to him for leadership now, but he still doesn't know everything. He is still too impulsive, runs away when Yoda tells him to stay, so he's not the fully formed hero yet. So I just find him as a character much more interesting this time around, and it's a better performance from Hamill because of that. I mean, towards the end, when he does get the ultimate in surprise and family news, he just absolutely sells the hell out of that moment. You couldn't ask for anyone better in that scene. So yeah, big fan of what he does here, because like you, John, I'm not a massive fan of what he did in Star Wars, but here, much better.
Yeah, Hamill was returning from Star Wars, of course, so if you want to hear the story of how he got the part of Luke, check out our Star Wars episode. But he still had to do a lot of prep to return for Empire. He had to spend 4 months learning karate, fencing and kendo to prepare for his stunts and action scenes.
Yeah.
I can't say much karate in Empire Strikes Back, to be honest with you. It's not exactly John Wick, is it?
Swinging from vines.
Yeah, Hamill didn't always have a good time on set either. His son was born during production and Hamill was given the day off, but he was called back to the set 9 hours after his son's birth to redo his shot. And the shot was the moment during the Battle of Hoth when he's about to get trampled on by the AT-AT.
Right.
And jumps from the snowspeeder to avoid it.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't very happy in being called back in. And it got worse, because in performing the stunt, he broke his thumb, which is ridiculous. But anyone could have done that shot, surely. Stunt double, easy.
With a helmet on, easily,
Yeah, I know.
There was also an accident at the start of filming, after Luke's been attacked by the Wampa, and we see him in the banter tank full of water.
Yeah.
Just before Hamill got in the tank, a mirror above the tank shattered, and huge pieces of glass tore down into the water. It was that bad that Kershner said if Mark had been in the tank at the time, he probably wouldn't have survived.
Holy shit.
Dicing with death. Hamill.
Right. Yeah.
Going to the full ends.
For his work on Empire, Mark Hamill won the Saturn Award for Best Actor. He returned as Luke in Return of the Jedi, then again in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. We seem to agree, though, that Empire is his best Star Wars performance.
Definitely.
Empire's his best Star Wars performance. I think A New Hope's a little bit too loose, and I think he's really pretentious in Return of the Jedi. Too pretentious.
Yeah, very arrogant by then.
Yeah.
The next person we're talking about is another returning cast member, Carrie Fisher as head of the Rebel Alliance, Princess Leia Organa.
Alright, so let's get out of here!
Empire is still out there. I don't think it's
No
wise.
time to discuss this in committee!
I am not a committee!
Now the leader of the rebels, Leia orchestrates the evacuation from Hoth, then joins Han, Chewie and 3PO on the Falcon, being chased by the Empire all the way to Bespin before rescuing Luke and rejoining the rebel fleet. Mm-hmm. What do we think of Leia and Carrie Fisher in the film? Matt?
Excellent. And again, like Hamill, she's got more to work with in terms of material. You know, like Luke, it's a different character now. She's not that princess anymore, still in the teens, who, you know, could kick ass a bit, but was still, you know, quite young. She's properly grown up in this film, and she's more than anyone, she's happy to take command. Like, I love that scene where she's dealing out the evacuation orders to the pilots, because you can see not one of them is taking it with anything less than complete respect and authority. Yeah. She just dominates every scene that she has to, which is great. And she's someone now who has the death of her entire planet to still deal with, but she's not giving into it. She's still kicking ass. She's still giving orders. Sees through all of Han's bullshit. She has Lando pegged bang to right as soon as she meets him. And Leia is just that usual mixture of toughness, but real sensitivity when it's just her and Han, and she lets a guard down around him. And as you always get with Fisher, really, really funny when it's called for. So very much like Hamill, the best Star Wars performance from Fisher in this film.
Yeah, I love Leia and I love Carrie Fisher, and she is really good in Empire, but the writing of her as a character is probably my least favourite thing about the film, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I mean, apart from 3PO, just generally, but that's a given.
Yeah, well, just generally, arsehole.
In Star Wars, Leia's awesome, takes charge, bosses the others about, and she's always right. Here, she's written as two damsel in distress, for my liking.
Right.
For too much of the film, she's just there to look pretty and get rescued. She's supposed to be the leader of the Rebel Alliance, but aside from a couple of scenes near the start, you mentioned them, Matt, where she's managing the evacuation, she doesn't do any of that. I know it's 1980 and it's of the time, but it feels like a bit of a portrayal of the character that Lucas originally created. That bit when Lando was sleazing all over and saying, "What have we here?" and "You really belong with us in the clouds," and she just says thank you. Then Han has to come and save her. That's awful. No way is Leia from Star Wars putting up with that shit. No way. I mean, I still like her in the film, and Carrie Fisher is great, but give her more to do that isn't being a love interest or being rescued by Han.
Right.
So yeah, I do like her in the film, but my biggest criticism of the film is how Leia's been handled this time round, which I think is a shame.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair enough, but for me, I think she plays people a little bit more clever than you give her credit for, and there's space there for her to move into that space if she needs to, and I think she's in these kind of different situations, and the only person she cares about is Han all the way through the film, and then Luke again when, you know, she finds out he's in trouble, and it's just, she does have this depth and does have this weight, and she is very much, I mean, even if this is 1980, there was no one else with the real guts to do it like this. This is a real kind of, you know, as much as you can do an Ellen Ripley performance in 1980, that's as much as you can do it. You know, she's got a gun, she's blowing stormtroopers away, she's kind of getting away at the end. Chewbacca's having to, you know, getting a hold of Lando, and she's like, come on, get him, that's great. But she is like, I don't know, it's her position, and I think the whole Rebel Alliance doesn't really know where it's going or what it's doing, and everything's in disarray. And I think she's the character that shows how much that whole thing is in disarray, how there is little to focus on, how there was the Death Star, we'll blow that up, that's what we need to do. And in this one, I think she has that, she carries that whole kind of confusion and carries it really well, and that frustration of like where we're going, what we're doing, what's happening here. So I think she is fantastic. I've always loved Carrie Fisher, and I've loved her especially in this film. I mean, in the first one, you can see her and Hamill are just like, we're kids and we're doing a Star Wars film. This one, we're like, we're actors and we're you know, we're portraying emotion, and it works. And she is really funny.
She is funny
and great, and like probably, you know, the first crush I ever had and always will be. Princess Leia, Empire Strikes Back. That hairstyle, amazing. Come on.
Well, when the crew all went to Finn's in Norway to shoot the outdoor scenes on Hoth with Luke and Han, Carrie Fisher went with them, even though she isn't in any of those scenes, because she wanted to spend time with the crew, which is nice.
You can tell she's dedicated to the whole thing.
Yeah,
you just see it. It's just this real weight, like I've said.
Yeah, and when they were filming in London, though, she was renting a house from Eric Idle, of all people. And apparently, one evening, Idle organised a party, so it was for her house and for some of the crew. And then the Rolling Stones turned up as well, and well, here we go.
Now it's a party.
No party till the Stones are there. According to Fisher, they bought a drink that she called the Tunisian table cleaner, and they ended up staying up all night And the next day's shoot was the arrival of Cloud City, which apparently is why she and Ford look the way they do in that scene.
Yeah, dishevelled.
Yeah. Spaced out. Yeah.
Talk about being in the clouds. Party with the Stones will do it.
Yeah. Keith Richards will be like, "You've been out of space, have you? Galaxy far, far away. Try some of this." You haven't been where I've been, yeah? And during her last few days in the UK, Fisher also discovered from a telephone conversation with her mother, Debbie Reynolds, that someone had threatened to kidnap her, which is outrageous, but
harsh.
Fairly believable, because that probably could have been me if I was old enough.
Where were you at the time?
I'm not telling you. I was behind your tiny telly in the kitchen. So for the last few days on the set, she was assigned bodyguards just to make sure she'd be all right. Wow. But like, terrifying stuff, man. Ridiculous.
Jagger and Richards, the bodyguards.
Yeah. The kidnappers, probably.
After The Empire Strikes Back, Carrie Fisher returned as Leia in Return of the Jedi, then again in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and also carved out a career for herself as a writer and novelist, getting BAFTA nominated for adapting her own novel, Postcard from the Edge, in 1990.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher sadly passed away in 2016, but will always be remembered for being Princess Leia.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
The Spencer Tracy to Leia's Katharine Hepburn, according to Carrie Fisher, is Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, and he's the next cast member we're going to look at in some detail.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Who's scruffy looking?
After saving Luke's life at the start of the movie, Han finds himself romantically involved with Leia before being captured by the Empire, tortured by Vader, and frozen in carbonite.
Yeah.
He's a scoundrel, isn't he? Han Solo, Harrison Ford, and Empire. What do you think, Westy?
Well, everyone knows my stance on Harrison Ford, let's be completely honest. I mean, I absolutely adore the guy. He was like my original hero. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favourite film of all time, and I always say it is. He's just great. He's just so watchable. He's just so enjoyable as a character because of his frustration and because of he's just so funny.
Yeah.
And his body language is great, and he's just got such a presence on screen, and his hair's amazing, and his outfits look great. And I want to be Han Solo. I don't want to be Luke. I want to be Han Solo. I want a blaster, and I want to be like Chewbacca there, and I want to fly the Millennium Falcon. Like, that's what I want to be. And he's just so sick of this shit now, isn't he? In this film, I just think he's just a great, great character, real comic relief. I absolutely love Ford in this. If I was going to be anyone in my life, it would be Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back. And just start bollocking people for no reason, because it's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic, obviously. Like Luke, Han feels more fleshed out and rounded here. He's more than just an archetype, like he sort of is in Star Wars, the pirate figure. Yeah. He's super cool. That blue jacket is great.
Unreal.
But he's also a bit of a douchebag, doesn't always know what he's doing. One of the best lovable rogues I've seen in films, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we know from his later films, Harrison Ford is excellent as a leading man, and he's really good at action as well. My favourite thing about him, though, is his comedy chops. I think he's an excellent comedy actor, and I think this is his funniest role. Han and Leia are like a comedy double act before they fall for each other. I love it when the Falcon breaks down and she's like, would it help if I got unpushed? And he's really offended. He's like, it might.
It might.
I love how much 3PO annoys him because he annoys me just as much.
Yeah.
But then when the drama comes later on with the frozen in carbonite, he's not found wanting either. Really sells that moment, a powerful dramatic moment. So brilliant stuff from Harrison Ford. Certainly one of the best performances of his whole career for me. Yeah. Top 3, probably.
Yeah, it's up there, definitely.
Yeah, agreed. I think out of the 3 leads, I think he is probably the one who was happiest with this script and happiest working with Kershner instead of Lucas in terms of being directed, because we all know what he said about Lucas's writing and directing technique, that, you know, he likes him personally, but, you know, I don't think he was that impressed with how he directed him. I love his reaction to 3PO when 3PO basically cockblocks him and interrupts him kissing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And 3PO was like, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah. In this place, he's got great comic chops. You get the cockiness, you get the bravado, but he's given much more depth now. And I think what you really start to see is that underneath that bravado, so much of the time, he's just winging it and seeing what he can get away with.
Yeah.
And what
he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. And obviously this film is the one where that look finally does run out from, which really works as a bit of drama. And I think it's a really interesting take on the character. It develops them really well. And you even see that he doesn't actually know as much about the Falcon as he likes to pretend he does. You get that bit later on where 3PO works out what's wrong when Han doesn't. And Han just pretends that he knew.
He has to tell Chewie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, really funny. So, yeah, complete agreement with you guys. I think out of all of his appearances as Solo, this is easily the one that feels definitive for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bit in the start when they're Hoth base and he just first comes back and you see him and Chewbacca together. He's in a massive hairy suit and he's going and like shouting at him and he's like, "All right, man, don't lose your temper. I'm going to go down there. I'll come back and give you a hand." And he totally sells it.
He does.
He like, he makes Chewbacca miles better.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
It's brilliant. And I think it's quite well known now, I think, that Harrison Ford wanted Han Solo to be killed off at the end of Empire, which I think he wanted with every single character he's played in the franchise. Just want them dead.
Just wants death scenes.
And he didn't want to play the character again ever, so that's why Lucas had him frozen in carbonite, just to give them the option whether to bring him back or not. But they did, and it's great.
He got his wish in The Force Awakens, didn't he?
Yeah, he loves that. That scene when he dies, he's so happy.
Finally.
Leaps off that bridge.
He's like, yes, amazing. Indeed.
Also, when the first trailer for Empire was released in cinemas, it had Harrison Ford on there doing the voiceover.
Really?
Have you heard that?
No.
I haven't.
Well, for anyone that's not heard it, here it is. The first Empire Strikes Back trailer, voiced by Harrison Ford.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo rescued the princess, destroyed the Death Star, but their story didn't end there.
Wouldn't have recognised him. He sounds far too excited to be Harrison Ford.
Really does.
More excited than he was for the Blade Runner voiceover.
Had he been at the Tunisian table cleaner when he did that? Must be only explanation for how happy he is there.
He might have been. Also a nice touch, when Ford found out that the editor, Paul Hirsch, hadn't been paid for cutting that trailer together, Ford split his fee with him for doing the voiceover.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Top guy.
Absolute
top
gentleman.
Guy.
Legend.
No award recognition for Harrison Ford in Empire, but no matter, he was on the way to big things in Hollywood. The year after Empire, he played Indiana Jones for the first time in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The year after that, he played Deckard in Blade Runner. Then the year after that, he was back as Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. Then the next year, he was Indy again in Temple of Doom.
Yep.
One of the biggest movie stars of his generation, Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
what
pretty good decade that, like, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
The villain of the piece and returning from Star Wars is, of course, Darth Vader. Played by David Prowse and voiced by James Earl Jones. That's who we're talking about next.
Calrissian, take the princess and the Wookiee to my ship.
You said they'd be left in the city under my supervision.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
With the demise of Grand Moff Tarkin at the end of Star Wars, Vader now does the Emperor's bidding and basically runs the Imperial fleet. Identifying the rebel base at the start of the movie, Vader hunts down Han and Leia before fighting and defeating Luke Skywalker in the climax.
Yeah.
Strong as Vader. How is he as the antagonist here? Matt?
It's really interesting because in a lot of ways I think this film is Vader's film. And I think he dominates this film in a way he didn't quite do in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, his presence just looms over everything, even the scenes he's not in. You just feel his, like, shadow there because he's hot on the heels of Leia and Han. And there's two things he does constantly in this film, which I think are great. First one is he makes some amazing entrances. Like, no one walks through a door like Vader does in this film. The base on Hoth, striding through the Star Destroyers, standing up from the table at Cloud City. Amazing, fantastic entrances. The second thing he does, just constantly dispatching inept underlings.
Great.
Like, just a litter of corpses behind him. Like, staff turnover under Vader must be absolutely appalling. Love him in this.
Everyone left, right and centre.
Everyone.
Apology accepted, Captain Leader. Boom.
Thinks it's hilarious as well. Great stuff. Love him.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. Vader's presence is such that his shadow is cast over this film in a way I've not seen any other villain do anywhere. Obviously, it's great in the climax when we see him freezing Han in carbonite and teaching Luke a thing or two, but it's the scenes on the Star Destroyer that I like the most. How merciless he is with his own men. Choking officers are failing him left, right and centre. And the cold fury that we get from him, the moment that he watches the Falcon escape through the viewport and then walks down the bridge and off the set, and everyone is just scared rigid. They don't even make eye contact with him. Brilliant. But we get development here too. The scene where we see him in his meditation chamber and get a glimpse of his head for the first time. It's subtle, but makes us think, what the hell's happened to him?
Yeah.
And then obviously the big
Terrifying.
plot reveal later on that blows our view from wide open. He's everything a good villain should be. He looks good, he sounds good, he's interesting, strong, powerful, he even gets a one-liner or two. We said in our Star Wars episode that Vader was one of the best villains in movie history. Here, he is the best villain in movie history for me.
Yeah.
Just an enormous presence in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I'm not going to disagree at all. I mean, I think Prowse needs a little bit of kudos here as well, because I think his body language and the way he moves is just as important as Earl Jones, to be fair.
Yeah.
And when he says, we can rule the galaxy as father and son, and his hand opens, I think that's great, just them little moments. Yeah. It's really great, and the lightsaber fight's outrageous, and I think he's great in that. I love him jumping down the stairs, man. I just want to do that every morning, fly down the stairs. And I also, it's so relevant that this now, when he starts strangling the guy, just like on the video, and like, how many people do you want to strangle over Zoom in the last year? It's like, I wish I could do that, and then just like fall in the background. You're in charge now. Boom. No, it's just so entertaining. It's a great, great, great performance. And like you said, John, this film it's probably the best baddie ever.
So Vader then, pretty good bad guy?
Absolutely brilliant.
He's all right.
Apology accepted, Captain Nida.
There is a wider cast, of course, and we're going to talk a bit more about Frank Oz as Yoda and Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, but in Mark Hamill as Luke, Carrie Fisher as Leia, Harrison Ford as Han, and David Prowse and James Earl Jones as Vader, we have 4 of the most iconic characters in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is, therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. And special offer to All the Right Movies listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Our second sponsor for this episode is a podcast called Films and Stuff. Presented by 2 old friends, Pete and Ethan, Films and Stuff is a recently launched podcast that talks mostly about films and TV shows, new and classic. In-depth reviews, analysis and fun chat is the order of the day as Pete and Ethan give their verdict on each film with their own unique rating system. Watch immediately, wait for it to be free, or skip it. Occasionally, Pete and Ethan will also talk about stuff, which tends to be topical subjects such as tech, gadgets, new or funny websites they've came across, and the latest digital sensation, NFTs. Films and Stuff is available on all major podcast sites such as Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Google, and lots more, and is also hosted on their website, www.filmsandstuffpodcast.com. So if fun discussions on movies and TV shows sounds like your thing, go check these fellas out. And big thanks to Films and Stuff for sponsoring this episode.
The middle.
Into the second act of The Empire Strikes Back, and our heroes have been separated. Luke is headed off to Dagobah to find Jedi Master Yoda, and we're going to be talking about that shortly, but up first, we're with Han and Leia in the Millennium Falcon and their space chase on the run from the Empire.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Having made a run for the Falcon during the Battle of Hoth, Han, Leia, Chewie and 3PO find themselves chased into deep space by Imperial forces. These sequences bring us TIE fighters, Star Destroyers, asteroid fields, Minox, and a good old-fashioned love story as the scoundrel and the princess fall for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about these scenes on the Falcon? Matt?
I just adore this sequence. It's by far and away one of my favourite bits in the film. I love the music. That's one of my favourite pieces of music in the film.
Definitely.
And honestly, this is what Star Wars is for me. The Falcon being pursued by TIE fighters. I could watch this for 2 hours and I'd be happy. That's all I need. All I need. But, you know, just great dialogue on the Falcon as well between Han and Leia. And it's a great glimpse now. Han is flying by the seat of his pants here. You know?
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He knows what they're doing is crazy, but it's the only thing he can think of. So he's going to do it and see if he can get away with it. What I like, though, is it shows you how much the special effects have come on from Star Wars as well. Because if you look at that film, in comparison, the scene where they escape the Death Star and the Falcon and the sent TIE fighters after them, you can kind of tell the Falcon's basically stationary in that shot, and they're moving the TIE fighters around it to create the sense of movement. And, you know, it's edited well, so it works. But here, everything's moving. The Falcon, it's ducking in between all the asteroids. They're spinning around. The TIE fighters are doing the same, but they're getting battered all over the place. Like, it's such a good sequence. I completely buy the fact that they then spend the next 15 minutes hiding in the mouth of a giant space worm. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Totally. Yep. I'm on board with that. Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah, it is. It's honestly one of my favourite bits in the film. It's just so exciting. It's so good. And Ford and Fisher are just incredible in those scenes together, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. The shots here of the Falcon swooping in between Star Destroyers and being followed by the TIE fighters. Timeless shots, those.
Yeah.
The side-on shot when they enter the asteroid field and the Falcon swoops towards the camera and away from it again, that still looks fantastic. And while this is going on, we keep cutting into the Falcon as Han and Chewie are trying to fix stuff and they're in the middle of the battle. Those moments are clearly comedy moments, like the toolbox falling on Han's head. But like we talked about, they never undermine the seriousness of the situation.
No.
I think it's a bit of a masterclass now to film a space battle, and we're going to talk more about how ILM did what they did. But at this point, 1980, it must have looked mind-blowingly good.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And there's that bit with the music. You know what does the loop to go into the crater?
Yeah, I love that.
And there's that little bit of music that just like comes through.
Yeah.
It's so good. And like the best bit of the whole thing is when they turn around and they're like, it's like a fight, like an attack formation, and he turns around like, we're going to go straight at it, and then just like flies over the top of the Star Destroyer, and they're like, well, where's he gone? And you feel so sorry for that guy, because you're like, he's trying his best.
I know.
And you know he's got to go and apologise to Lord Vader, and you're like, oh, you're dead.
Yep.
Oh, that sucks. It's just so clever how they've just camouflaged themselves on the ship. It's just so good. Like, no ship that small has a cloaking device. Amazing. But you do, and he's involved in that. And I think that's just really clever writing and really cleverly done. And you don't see that coming at all. And that payoff, even when you go back in the Falcon, they're just like really relieved that it's worked. Absolutely brilliant. Really Rebel Alliance way to get away. Just float away in the garbage. You're not going to notice, were you?
We talked about the Millennium Falcon there, and this film was the only time that they ever built a full-size Falcon for filming.
Yeah.
It was 65 feet across, 80 feet long, 16 feet high, and it weighed 23 tons.
Wow.
Fancy one of them in your back garden, Westy?
I'd just live in it. Wouldn't be my back garden. That'd be
just
my
move
house.
in.
That's my house. Getting an Uber back to the Falcon.
Yeah, as well as that, though, you also see Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer in the film. That's called the Executor, and apparently it's 19 kilometres long.
19 kilometres long?
Yeah, that would fit in your garden.
Yeah, they didn't build that one for real.
It definitely wouldn't fit in my garden.
To be fair as well, once you get to the point that you're calling your ships the Death Star and the Executor, you're not even pretending to be the good guys anymore at that point.
Are we the bad guys? Is this the dark side? Yeah, it's fine.
So Han and Leia escape the Empire, but they're not out of it yet, are they?
Nope.
Sir, it's quite possible this asteroid is not entirely stable.
Not entirely stable. I'm glad you're here to tell us these things. Chewie, take the professor in the back and plug him into the hyperdrive.
While Han and Leia are fighting for their lives, Luke's having it pretty easy over on Dagobah in comparison.
Do you think?
And now we're headed there with him too.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
Jedi Master? Yoda. You seek Yoda.
After leaving Hoth and under instruction from Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke doesn't meet up with the rest of the Rebel fleet. He heads off to Dagobah with R2 to learn the ways of the Force. The scenes on Dagobah bring us swamp monsters, dark side caves, and introduces one of Star Wars' most iconic characters and the wisest of Jedi Masters in Yoda.
Yeah.
Of all the places to be exiled, I'd have chosen somewhere a bit more scenic, I think, than Dagobah.
Yeah.
Dump.
It smelled a little bit better. It fucking stinks on there, man.
How are these scenes in the film, Westy?
I think they're great, and I think it's really, really good that you get that sense of like Yoda pretending to be somebody that he's not, and he's not playing straight into Luke's hands, and I think that's really cocky. He's a horrible little cocky bastard in that. Like, he's just leading him down the garden path, and you know he is. Like, it's brilliant. But I mean, imagine Frank Oz turning around to you if you're Irvin Kershner, and he's like, what do you think Yoda's going to sound like? And he does the voice for the first time, and you'd be like, yeah, really?
We'll give it a go.
Is he? Is it? Is that what you? Are you serious? but it really works. Like, watch it again the first time he speaks, and imagine being Irvin Kershner just saying okay to that. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do that.
Yeah, do that. That sounds absolutely spot on. And the whole, I mean, it's just outrageously good. It's just outrageously good, and I think the puppeteering's amazing. I think Frank Oz is really good. Oh, it's going to be a performance. Frank Oz is going to talk like this, and it's going to make total sense. Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It works.
Yeah, when they first get a Dagobah, R2 falls into the swamp and gets swallowed by some kind of monster. That was one of the sequences that came back and shot later that we talked about, and that whole sequence was shot in George Lucas's swimming pool.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, filthy.
He can fit the start a story when he's back on.
But yeah, I mean, how great is Yoda? He's very much an archetype, like the old man or goblin who imparts wisdom to the main character. I love how much he loves the Force. Yoda loves the Force more than any other film character has ever loved anything. That luminous beings monologue. Oh, I'm going to play it.
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
And he follows that by using the Force to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp, which is one of the best moments in the film for me. A 2-foot-tall frog thing talking about some mystical power that doesn't exist, and we're supposed to take it seriously. In a lesser film, that would be laughable. Laughable.
And the dialogue that follows that, when he's like, I don't believe it, and he's like, that's why you'll fail.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Yoda's dialogue is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think we'll buy him because, for a few reasons, the design work is superb. Frank Oz as the puppeteer and the voice actor is fantastic. The dialogue written by Kazdan is superb. I mean, they ruined him later on in the prequels when he's an idiot and does stupid things and leaps about like Sonic the Hedgehog with a lightsaber. But here in Empire, this is Yoda to me. One of the best supporting characters I've ever seen. Fantastic.
He's fantastic. You trust him immediately.
Oh, I love him. I'd do anything he told us to do.
All right, then.
Matt, what about you in this sequence?
See you in court next week. You would have told us to do it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that sequence, though, where as part of Luke's training, he makes Luke go into the cave, but he doesn't tell him what's in there.
Brilliant.
Because it's very, very trippy, I think, and it builds that tension up brilliantly, just because you can't get a reading on Yoda here. Just sitting there drawing pictures in the mud with a stick doesn't give any clue what Luke's going to face. And it does surprise you because you can see Dagobah's full of snakes and lizards crawling all over the place. So you think, right, is it going to be like some kind of swamp monster, like the Womp or something like that? You're just not expecting Vader in a really wrong footsie, because just for a second you think, this has been a trap all along. Is Yoda actually a bad guy?
Yeah.
It does wrong for you just for a second.
It does, yeah, massively.
But I think because it's in slow motion, it gets this real nightmarish quality to it. It never feels quite real. And I think ultimately it's just some really nice foreshadowing of what's to come in the third act. The fact when Luke asks Yoda what's in there, and he says, only what you take with you. And then it's Luke's head inside the helmet. So it's obviously talking about Luke's ancestry, where he actually comes from and who Vader really is. So it's some really nice foreshadowing going on.
He knows it as well, deep down.
Yeah, that's it. He does
what
know.
Vader says, you know it to be true. And he's have to accept it. But he's like, your weapons, you won't need them. And then takes them anyway. I think that's a great line.
Yeah, it is, because seeing himself as Vader is like a manifestation of Luke's anger and fear, which is what made him take the weapons in the first place. So if he hadn't taken the weapons, he wouldn't have needed them, which is what Yoda meant. It's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah, really good. I mentioned how Mark Hamill broke his thumb earlier, and when he jumped from the snowspeeder, and he was in the wars on Dagobah 2, to be honest. Like, the moment where Yoda and Obi-Wan are trying to convince Luke to stay, Luke pulls a snake from his X-Wing. Kershner had assured him that the snake was harmless, but it bit him a few times on the hand. And earlier in Yoda's hut, when Luke bangs his head on the roof, Kershner made Hamill do that 16 times. Just bang your head again. David Fincher. Yeah.
Kershner had it in for Hamill, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, he did. Irvin Finchner.
I know that Hamill did struggle with the scenes on Dagobah as he was there by himself as an actor and getting bitten by snakes. So Frank Oz brought in Miss Piggy to make him laugh on the set.
Really, I'd need more than that.
Yeah. I want like a bottle of Jack or something, to be honest.
Yeah, that wouldn't do it for me.
I've been bitten by a snake. I don't want to see Miss Piggy, to be honest.
Frank, I'm having a shit time. I tell you what. Who's this? Nah, that's not doing it. Karate chopping the snakes.
That's why he goes karate training.
That's what it was.
And the thing about Yoda, he's obviously Lucas's ID, but he did change a lot along the way. First of all things in this must be another reference to a dog. He was called Buffy, which I'm just so glad they changed that. Can you imagine? Buffy, no way. then Minch, which kind of getting there before finally settling on Yoda. So Lucas's ID, but the design came from a British makeup artist called Stuart Freeborn, who based the eyes on Albert Einstein, which I think is really obvious. You can totally tell it's Einstein.
Yeah.
But the rest of Yoda's face, based on himself, which, you know, I don't really want to Google what Stuart Freeborn looks like.
You can't tell. He looks like Yoda.
He does.
No way.
Have a look online for Stuart Freeborn if you've not seen him before. There's pictures of him next to the Yoda puppet, and he looks like Yoda. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. I don't know if I want to see that.
I know as well that Irvin Kershner originally thought Yoda should be 9 feet tall and have a big white beard like Moses, but Lucas said that's a bit of a cliche, Kersh.
Like Gandalf.
Yeah. The first person Lucas offered Yoda to as well, it's a pretty obvious one. It was Jim Henson, because obviously he created the Muppets. Yeah. So, you know, second nature in working with puppets. But Henson was too busy making the Great Muppet Caper, so he was the guy who recommended Frank Oz instead, which is why we have him as Yoda.
And you know Deep Roy, the actor who played the Oompa Loompas in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Oh, yeah.
He played Yoda too, though he was uncredited in the film. The wide shot for him to see Yoda walk in the distance. That's Deep Roy in a Yoda costume.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be nice for Williams to put that in the score. It's like, doom, 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 doom. Smoking through the swamp. Doom, doom, doom. It's like, but like with strings. Yoga was controlled by Frank Oz, as we've said, and 3 other puppeteers, so the whole Dagobah set was actually elevated so they would get underneath it. So Mark Hamill wore an earpiece so he could hear Frank Oz doing the voice under the set. And Oz said that on many occasions Kershner would give directions directly to Yoda and not to him, and you have to remind him who he was speaking to. Talking straight to the puppet, like, do that better. That would be, just turn this way. He's like, yeah, I'm just here. But how annoying is that for Hamill with an earpiece with Frank Oz just giving it 6 now?
Yeah.
That's your day job.
Too used to his indie dramas, he didn't know what was going on. Also, George Lucas was so blown away by Frank Oz's performance as Yoda that he spent thousands of dollars on his advertising campaign to try and get him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
Wow.
It ultimately failed, though, because of Academy restrictions. But Oscar-worthy?
I mean, it's good.
Yeah,
but
he is good. He's very good.
It's not like Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, is it? Let's be honest.
Although, to be fair, I'd probably take Oz's performance here over Connery in The Untouchables.
Get out.
Oh, would you?
Unbelievable.
Enough of this running shit.
Yoda is one of the most iconic supporting characters in cinema, and Star Wars does have a few of those, though. And on that, we have a question from Patreon.
Okay.
So one of the benefits of being an ATRM Patreon is I will answer your questions on the show, and Ryan Shippo has a question for us.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Ryan.
So here's Ryan.
Hey guys, Ryan here. With so many great characters in the Star Wars universe, who's your favorite Star Wars character, and why is it Darth Vader? Thanks, guys.
Well, we've already talked about Vader, so Matt, who's your favourite aside from him?
Aside from Vader, I'm going to go for Chewie, just because everyone needs a best friend like Chewie, and I want to have a best friend where I'm the only person who understands what he says. I just think that's quite a cool thing to have. And
really selfish.
Yeah, really selfish, but, you know, that's what I want from friends. And he's just always got your back.
You're the only one who understands what I say most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, he's just always got your back. He's going to be handy in the scrap. He can fly the Falcon with you. What's not to love about Chewie? And he gives great hugs. Look at him.
Yeah. I can strangle someone if you want.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And Westy, Jar Jar for you, right?
Oh, okay. No, I'm going to go for Boba Fett. He's just the coolest. And he was the coolest when I saw him in this. He's absolutely brilliant.
Looks great. Looks really cool.
Yeah.
Great.
So the middle of The Empire Strikes Back is where the narrative really starts to progress. Han and Leia escaping the Empire is a roller coaster, and the scenes between Luke and Yoda on Dagobah, pretty iconic.
Yeah,
Definitely,
fantastic.
Definitely.
The crew.
A sequel to Star Wars was always going to be a big production. That's exactly what The Empire Strikes Back was, and we're going to talk about some of the crew who worked on that production now. John Williams is the composer, Peter Sashitsky is the director of photography, and ILM providing the visual effects are all coming up. But let's start with the writing of the movie, shall we?
Yeah.
Yep.
So there are 3 credited writers on The Empire Strikes Back. The story was written by George Lucas, and the screenplay is credited to Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan.
Yep.
Lee Brackett was a science fiction short story writer known as the Queen of Space Opera, and had some big screenplay credits like The Big Sleep, Rio Bravo and The Long Goodbye under her belt.
Nice.
And Lawrence Kasdan was a young screenwriter making a name for himself who had recently worked with Lucas by writing the screenplay for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
So what do we think of the writing on Empire? Westy?
I think it's a really hard gig to have, because I don't think Lucas would have had a very in-depth idea of what he wanted to do. I think it kind of, the opening crawl, I think, is all Lucas would have given to the 2 other guys. Like, if he give like the opening crawl to Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan and just been like, this is where we are. They're sending probes out, so let's just go from there. And it doesn't feel like it's consistent, but that's not a bad thing. I feel like it really works, and it was, again, like I always say with the writing, it was a work in progress as they were shooting. And I think a lot of things were added, a lot of things were taken away, a lot of things were ad-libbed, a lot of things were put in, and people were disagreeing with whatever else. And I think that's what you get from the writing.
Yeah, I think the writing's brilliant, top to bottom. The development of the world by bringing in new elements like bounty hunters, the Emperor, new societies is excellent. The screenplay in itself, in fleshing out characters more and vastly improving on the dialogue from the first film, is top-notch. But the thing I want to talk about is the storytelling, which I think is just incredible. In Star Wars, Lucas created this amazing universe and was savvy enough to just drop in your classic hero's journey story, which works perfectly. Here, he's making the big sequel, and Hollywood rules tell us that blockbuster sequels have to tell the same story as the first film, but the stakes are bigger. Yeah. Aliens goes from Ripley being trapped on a spaceship to Ripley being trapped on a planet, only now there's loads of aliens. Terminator 2 is the same chase story as the first one, but now there's 2 Terminators, and one of them's liquid metal, Robert Patrick. Lucas doesn't do any of that. He breaks the sequel rules in quite a few ways. Firstly, the stakes get smaller. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker wants to save the galaxy. Here, he just wants to save his friends.
Yeah.
The big battle usually comes at the end of the movie. Not here, it comes at the start. The end is small and intimate and much more about character drama. Also, the film ends on a cliffhanger. You're not supposed to do that. And most of all, the good guys don't even win at the end of the film. And when you throw in, it's got the most iconic plot twist ever, which we're obviously going to talk about later on. Yeah. The storytelling is just as good as it gets in this kind of film for me.
I bet James Cameron hates this film.
I mean, this is what Star Wars used to be capable of before the dark times.
Yeah.
Before Disney.
Yeah, there's just so many elements here that shouldn't work, and yet they do. You know, you mentioned a lot there, John, but the fact that our 3 heroes who we really enjoyed getting to see together in the first film spend at least 2/3 of this apart from each other. The fact that really there's very little plot, it's just all story, it's just a constant sense of movement and of escape. And that all works. And then the bleakness that's in it. There's one line that always stands out to me, and it's quite throwaway, and it's when they've been captured on Cloud City, and Han gets brought back to the cell after being tortured, and he says, they didn't even ask me any questions.
Great line.
Yeah.
What a line. They've just been torturing him. How bleak is that?
Yeah.
Vader, total bastard. Yeah.
Just torture him for the hell of it.
Imagine, right, what Matt's just said there. Put that in a blurb, and then anyone who hasn't seen The Empire Strikes Back get to read that, and I don't think they're going to want to see it ever.
No, absolutely not. And yet, that's what should sink the film, and that's what makes the film work, though. And then the characters are better developed. Everyone now has light and shade to them, and then there's how much mythology gets added in here. More explanation what the Force is. You have Yoda, the Emperor, Lando, Boba Fett. There's an incredible depth to this writing, and it's like you say, John, for a sequel, it should have just been throwaway. It should have been Star Wars again, bit bigger.
Yeah.
But this, so many brave decisions, and every one of them comes off and pays off brilliantly at the end.
The first draft of the script was written by Lee Brackett alone. She sadly passed away from cancer shortly after finishing her draft, and that's why Lucas brought in Lawrence Kasdan, as they were working together on Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the script changed a lot after Kasdan came in.
Yeah, Lee Brackett's draft was called Star Wars Chapter 2, which is very different to what we see on the screen. Kasdan said her take was from a different era and that it didn't have the right tone. And in Brackett's original version, Vader was not Luke's father, but we did find out that Luke had a sister. The sister wasn't Leia, and she was called Nelith. So I think it's like, this sounds more like June than it does.
Yeah. Nelith the elephant.
Did you write that one?
Wasn't that Frasier's wife in Frasier?
You've been dying to say that, John, haven't you?
I have. I had it written down. Yeah, Lee Brackett was 65 at the time. They'd written science fiction as far back as the 1940s, whereas Empire was cool, cutting edge science fiction. So Kasdan, who was like 30 at the time, probably was the better fit for it.
Yeah, and if you look at the credits, one of the producers is a guy called Howard Kazanjian. And he says, according to him, the drafts changed so much that if Lucas hadn't insisted, then Brackett actually wouldn't have got any credit, or wouldn't have been eligible, because it did change so much. But he did go to the WGA, which is the Writers Guild, to ask for co-credit for her, which she did get. And he also supported her family by giving them more than the $50,000 he'd already agreed to pay for her. So, you know, say what you like about him, he stands by his friends and he recognises good work, I think.
Yeah, he's the Chewbacca of Hollywood.
He is.
I thought he was skint. No wonder.
Just pull this one out of somewhere.
No, there's more toys to sell on this one. We'll sell some more toys. We'll be fine.
Also quite interesting, before Star Wars came out, Lucas wasn't sure if it was going to be successful, so he mapped out 2 possible sequels. An expensive one, if Star Wars was a hit, that became Empire, and also a low-budget one, in case it wasn't.
Okay.
Have you heard much about that?
No, not at all.
The low-budget sequel was called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And in the Jesus, and in the story, Luke and Leia become marooned on a planet called Mimban, and so does Darth Vader. How? And then he's basically hunting them across the planet. So it's like Predator with 2 people in it, and Darth Vader's the Predator. Outrageous. Low budget. That sounds mint.
It was turned into a novel by Alan Dean Foster and a graphic novel too by Marvel.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I'll check that out.
After writing Empire, Lawrence Kasdan went on to have a very successful career. He wrote Raiders, like we mentioned, wrote and directed Silverado, The Bodyguard, and Wyatt Earp, and also wrote other Star Wars films, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and Solo, A Star Wars Story. Empire, though, up there with his best, surely?
Definitely. I think it is, yeah, definitely.
Moving on from the writing to the music, and the composer on Empire was, of course, John Williams.
Yes, it was.
Returning from his Oscar-winning score on Star Wars, Williams composed all of the music we hear in the film, developing his original music and adding in new pieces too. How good is it, though, the music on Empire, Matt?
Well, when we did the Rankin Spielberg episode, I remember then, when I talked about Raiders, I wanted to talk about the soundtrack, because I think I said then, that's probably Williams' best overall work. But after watching Empire a few times in the last week and listening to the soundtrack a few times just on its own, I think I've got to change my mind. I think this has to be it. I mean, certainly it's his best Star Wars work. Yeah. Because he's bringing everything back from the first, which was amazing to begin with. But then just look at what he adds. Already mentioned, I love the music from the asteroid field scene, Yoda's theme, and obviously the Imperial March. You know, Evil has a theme tune, thanks to John Williams and what he does here. It's just sensational, and I think my favourite use of music is right at the end when the Falcons made it back to the Rebel fleet, but Han's gone and everyone's just recovering, and the music is so like gentle and mournful at first, like picked out on that guitar, but then it just builds and it builds and it swells and it goes into the love theme and it just sweeps you away, and then Williams just hits you with that fanfare for the end credits. And then the end suite, it's just, forget about it. That's just incredible work. So yeah, his work here, faultless.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm going to repeat exactly what I said on the Star Wars episode, in that he's absolutely saved this film. He saved Star Wars. He made it believable. He made it serious. He made it accessible. He made you sit up and take notice. Look, this isn't just a throwaway sci-fi film. This is a space opera. It's massive. And he just brings everything that he can. Like Matt said, the Imperial March, when you hear that, that is the ultimate baddie tune. You're doing a theme for a guy in a mask who's all in black, and he just walks in and out and he strangles people over like a video feed and whatever else. It's like, right, okay, what's that going to be like? It's like, dun, 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 dun. Yes, that's exactly what it's like. And he nails it. Absolutely nails it. John Williams, man, he's made so many films 100% better by matching the visuals through the music, and this film is no exception.
Yeah, I think the most well-known music from Empire, of the new pieces anyway, is surely the Imperial March.
Yeah.
You both mentioned it there, basically the Empire Invaders theme tune. It is brilliant, but Williams did apparently take inspiration for it from somewhere else. Have you heard about that?
I've not.
So, the 19th century classical composer, Frédéric Chopin, in his Funeral March.
Right.
For our listeners, here is Chopin's Funeral March, if you've not heard it. Sound familiar? Can you hear Empire in that?
Yeah, I can now, actually.
I can, yeah.
I wouldn't have thought so. If you said the Funeral March, I would have went, no. But actually,
yeah.
Get it now.
Yeah, he's taken the melody and rearranged it to be more bombastic, for sure. That whole piece by Chopin is stunning, by the way, if you've not heard the full thing.
Right.
Slow and miserable. You like it, Westy.
Yeah, I'm going to get it on vinyl.
No Oscar wins this time for John Williams for his music on Empire, though he was nominated. He lost out to Michael Gore for Fame.
Oh, really? I mean, that's massive. That's a massive soundtrack, to be fair.
He was unperturbed, though, Williams, and went on to have a fairly successful career after Empire.
Yeah, he did all right. He did all right.
No complaints.
On to how the film looks, and we're looking at the cinematography on Empire. The DP on the film was Peter Sashitsky, a career going back to the 1960s. Sashitsky's most famous films before Empire were All Creatures Great and Small and The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes. Yeah.
A step up in terms of scale for Peter Sashitsky then. How did he do, his DP on Empire?
It's a strange one, isn't it? It's like when we talked about Star Wars, we said then, we know who people like Ralph McQuarrie are, who does like the concept designs. We know who Ben Bird is, who does the sound effects. Can't tell you who does the cinematography on Star Wars. I've forgotten who it was. We talked about him. I've forgotten who the guy is. It's such a weird thing.
Gilbert Taylor.
Yeah, that's the guy. And it's the same here. You know, he's not a household name, and yet his work, it's incredible. And the difference for me from what Taylor did on Star Wars is Star Wars had two looks, basically. You're either inside a brightly lit spaceship or you're on the desert on Tatooine, and he had two looks to nail. Here, Sashitsky has got so many looks to contend with. Spaceships, the iciness of Hoth, the swampiness of Dagobah, Cloud City, which at first from the outside it looks like it's surrounded by candy floss, but it gets darker and darker the deeper you get into it, especially like the Foundry bit. And he nails every single look. He makes the whole film feel so cohesive, when really it kind of should be all over the place. And I think he establishes visually, more than what Taylor did, what the Star Wars universe should look like and how it should feel. I think he is, for me, he's the unsung hero of this film.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know that Lucas actually wanted Peter Sashitsky to shoot the original Star Wars after we'd seen a film he'd shot called Privilege in 1967. But because Lucas was so inexperienced, the studio said he had to have an experienced DP, which is why Gilbert Taylor was hired. Right. And Lucas and Taylor didn't get on Star Wars. So Lucas went back to Sashitsky for Empire. And yeah, I'm glad he did. Empire is easily the best looking Star Wars film to me. I love how we go from the really light colour palette at the start of the film with the bright blue sky and the perfect white snow on Hoth, and the palette gets gradually darker and darker until Luke and Vader are almost like two silhouettes in the final act.
Yeah.
Feels like it has a lot more visual richness and depth to it than the first film. And my favourite shot from any Star Wars film is when Luke first comes together with Vader on Bespin, and there's that shot of a silhouetted Vader standing at the top of the stairs. Awesome.
Yeah.
And Westy, what about you?
Wow,
it
looks great, doesn't it? It's
it does.
Dark. It's just aggressive looking. It's just, but at the same time, it's the camera movement is just superb. The blocking is just superb, and wasn't scared about getting dark, which is one of my, all-time favourite things about anyone who's an artist. If you're not scared of getting dark, I'm there all day. Do you know that you're in a world here, and he creates the world? And he creates the texture of the world, and it's consistent from start to finish. I think it's a wonderful piece of work.
Yeah, I know as well that when the budget started becoming a big issue, Peter Sashitsky came to Lucas' rescue a bit. He said to Lucas that rather than finishing the sets for Dagobah and Cloud City, where Han's frozen in carbonite, just hang up some black curtains, fill the background with smoke, and he'd be able to make it look good with some clever lighting. So they did that, and that's why there's so much smoke in those sequences. The sets weren't finished.
Amazing.
Genius.
So I told you my favourite shot there with Vader. What about you fellas? What are your favourite shots in the film? Westy?
My favourite shot is a similar one to you, but it's just after. It's the same sequence, but it's when they're both at the top of the stairs and the lightsabers are just ignited.
Oh, incredible. iconic.
But the great thing about, if you watch it again, it's all blue, and you've got Luke's lightsaber that's blue, and then Vader ignites his lightsaber, and then it turns back to Luke, and you start getting red, and then it cuts to a wide shot, and then the stairs are red, so then you've got blue and red in the scene against their blue and red lightsabers. I think that production design, that whole thing, that silhouetted look, it's just like, that's it for me. That's cinema. Fantastic. Every day of the week.
Mine is from the very last scene of the film, basically, and it's that shot of Luke leaving the droids, looking out the window from the Rebel fleet to the Spiral Galaxy, because that shot, to me, it sums up the emotion of the film. At that moment in the film, I just feel everything that the film wants me to feel in that one image. Like Empire Strikes Back, it's exhausting in the best possible way to watch, because everyone goes through so much. I feel that sense of defeat. I feel that sense of they've not achieved anything and they've lost hand along the way, but you still get that little smidgen of hope. The fact that, okay, they've gone through defeat, but they've all lived. They're still alive and they live to fight another day. And I just feel that image encapsulates that perfectly.
Lovely.
For his work on The Empire Strikes Back, Peter Sashitsky received no award recognition, but his career afterwards was pretty stellar.
Yeah.
Westy, you mentioned that he shot Crawl in 1983. One of the great, terrible films. And then he became a big collaborator with David Cronenberg and shot 10 Cronenberg films, including Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch, Crash, Existent, History of Violence. He also worked with Tim Burton on Mars Attacks, so some career he had.
He did, actually, yeah.
He just picked
really
some
underrated.
really interesting films.
Last but certainly not least, we're looking at the special effects work on Empire. The team responsible for that was Lucas' own Industrial Light and Magic, headed by Richard Edlund, Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett, and they were responsible for the 600 effect shots in the movie, almost double the 360 that Star Wars had.
Yeah.
Did ILM hit the standard here, do we think? Matt?
Oh yeah, amazing work. I mean, I want to talk about Hoth and the AT-ATs, because what those special effects do brilliantly there, which I love when they achieve this with practical effects work, is it gives them a sense of character, despite the fact that they're just machines, but they've got a real sense of menace to them. I think that's what Ray Harryhausen used to do brilliantly in the 50s and 60s and the 70s even, with his best work.
When Talos turns his head in Jason the Argonauts, that reminds you of an AT-AT when he's on all fours, he's and you're that's just as terrifying.
It is. That's exactly the same vibe I get from that. Yeah, Jason the Argonauts, when Talos comes to life and he's stomping all over the island trying to, stamp on Jason and his men. That's exactly the feeling I get from the AT-ATs.
Yeah, totally.
I absolutely love them. Totally menacing, so memorable.
With the AT-ATs, Lucas knew that he wanted a big snow battle, but wasn't sure what vehicles to use. There was a concept artist called Joe Johnson who came up with the idea of walking tanks based on the tripods from The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
Right, nice,
Yeah, and designs that he'd seen by Sid Mead, the concept artist on Blade Runner, that he'd done for US Steel. And from that, Joe Johnson designed the look of the AT-ATs. Just superb design work.
Oh, amazing. Unreal. And in terms of animating the AT-ATs, they used stop motion, which is very Harryhausen, that's why it has that kind of look. And it was an animator called John Berg who led on the AT-ATs and the whole look of it. But it took him 13 months, working 14 hours a day to do all the animations.
Holy shit.
14 hours a day for over a year. I bet he's sick of the sight of them fucking things.
Yeah, it was stop motion, but in terms of how it was filmed, it was all in camera. So they had scale sets of the snow, and with matte paintings by Ralph McQuarrie, the concept artist from Star Wars, to create the mountains and the background sky. So what we see on the screen is how it looked when they were actually filming it.
Wow.
Looks fantastic.
It does.
I just absolutely love where they went with the space battles on this. You were in the cockpit, you were getting them point of view shots, but this one, like you said earlier, John, the Falcon sweeping up and down towards the camera, and I've dug the VHS out to watch it this week, believe it or not, and I've plugged it in, and it's still as good. It's really grainy and really crap, and the sound's awful, and the grit.
In every ship as well, though, they're all scale models as well, and they're filmed against a blue screen. And then what they did was they would move them in various ways, so they're either on pulleys or movable rods, or they move the camera, so it all gives you the illusion of movement. And they do the same with anything else in the shots. So that asteroid field, for example, those asteroids moving in the same way, and it all gets composited into the same shot.
Yeah, that's right. So, for example, any shots where we see the Millennium Falcon swooping towards the camera or diving between Star Destroyers, it's usually the camera that's moving, not the Falcon, even though it looks like the Falcon's moving.
Yeah.
But that moment, though, and I think it's probably the best bit of that sequence, when that TIE fighter hits the asteroid and spins into the camera.
Yeah.
That's about 1.7 seconds on screen, but from start to finish, took 3 weeks to complete with the team of animators.
Wow. And that's one shot of many, isn't it?
It stayed in my head for 30 years, so it was totally worth it.
Job done.
Yeah. Development on Empire had started pretty much straight after Star Wars was released in 1977, but the issue that Lucas had was, because he'd set up ILM specifically for Star Wars, after Star Wars was finished, ILM had no other projects, so Lucas had to close it down. He then had to re-establish ILM for Empire, but obviously the people who worked there, like John Dykstra, they'd all moved on. So Lucas had to restaff almost the entire company.
Right.
And they eventually had a team of 100 who worked on Empire, and the majority of them had to work 15-hour days to hit the deadlines for the film.
Wow.
Everyone working their asses off for Lucas, the taskmaster.
15 hours.
I mean, it did turn out worth it, because for their work on The Empire Strikes Back, ILM did win Best Visual Effects at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And this time, after the film wrapped, Lucas didn't shut ILM down. And they're still probably the biggest visual effects house out there. So, all's well that ends well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There is a wider crew on Empire who deserve special mention as well. Ralph McQuarrie as concept artist, Ben Burt as a sound designer, Norman Reynolds a production designer, and John Molo as a costume designer, all did iconic work. And in terms of the crew as a whole, I think it's difficult to overstate the importance of their contributions.
No, exactly. It's just like the cast we read about at the start. Yeah, you have to read the whole crew out. Not a single person can be left out.
The end.
The final act of The Empire Strikes Back is among the most famous and iconic in Hollywood, and we're going all in on it. We'll be talking about the climactic lightsaber duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, but before we get to that, we've got some carbonite that needs freezing.
I've just made a deal that'll keep the Empire out of here forever.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Having escaped the Empire by floating away with the rest of the garbage, Han and Leia head to Bespin, the city in the clouds, to meet up with an old pal of Han's in Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, though, the Empire have got there first. In the following scenes, we meet Lando, bounty hunter Boba Fett, and see Han frozen in carbonite. Massive, right?
Huge. Yeah. Too big.
What do you think, Westy? Too big?
Too big. I can't handle it. I think it's fantastic. The whole design of that whole place is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think this whole dialogue sequence between Ford and Fisher is just wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's a really great, powerful character moment. I think the way it looks is outrageous. It's just so palpable, I guess. You just want to just really just get involved. You want to be there. It's like a place that I want to visit. It's like somewhere that you want to go. It's like it looks just so real and but at the same time weird. But yeah, I love Lando. I love the fact that you can't really trust him, and it's so good. Yeah, it's a fantastic sequence. Really, really brilliant.
Yeah, we've been in space and on the Falcon with Han and Leia for quite a while at this point, so the setting change to Bespin is the right thing to do. The city in the cloud was actually designed for Star Wars originally as an Imperial prison, but it was never used, so Lucas reused it here. It works. Looks perfect.
Yeah, it looks great.
But that moment when Lando opens the door and Vader's standing there, that is one of the great surprise reveals. Han's reaction is instant in drawing his blaster, and we know how good Han Solo is, but he's no match whatsoever for Vader. Just force pulls the gun out of his hand like he's a child. Fantastic. Yeah. And the moment the hand's frozen in carbonite, the drama where the music and the cinematography combine is just off the charts. I love the bit after he's been frozen as well, and the workers push him over and he slams against the floor.
Yeah.
Brilliantly put together by Kershner, all that.
Heartbreaking.
I mean, yeah, this is the Empire at their best, and Vader at his best, and you've got Boba Fett in there, and 3PO gets blown to smithereens. I mean...
Great. That's a bonus.
Chewie should have left him in the scrapyard, but apart from that, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's frozen in carbonite, I just love the way that's lit, because that orange that's coming up from below, almost red, contrasting to how dark that blue is on the upper level, it gives it a real, imagery of hell to me. That's what it feels like. Because then you got the Ugnaughts scamping around doing all their stuff, and they look like goblins. And Vader is just towering over everyone, and you've got all the steam billowing up from below. It's got a real satanic feel to it, this scene. Yeah. And I know Han is being frozen because I've been told that, but it feels like he's going to be burned at the stake. That's what it looks like. He's going to be sacrificed. Yeah. That's the feel that this whole scene has.
It's Vader's line as well, isn't it? When he's like, he speaks to Boba Fett and he's like, the Empire will compensate you if he dies.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck?
Well, that's it. That's it exactly. Everything is escalated so quickly at this point. You're like, you can't believe what he's saying. Like, oh, is this actually happening? Are they in that much of bad trouble? Is Luke going to rescue them? And they're like, no, he's not. This is, this is how screwed they are. And this is what I mean by saying, like, the film is exhausting in a good way, because they've just gotten away from the Empire on like 2 or 3 occasions. And you're like, God, can they not just get away for good? And this time, obviously, they don't. But what makes it for me is Chewie's reaction. Like, it's great. Everyone loves Chewie. We know how much he loves Han. And those cries of anguish he's given out, which must be like fear and anger and grief, really upsetting. And you're just saying, if Chewie's that upset and scared by it, I should be really scared and upset by it.
Yeah.
Brilliant scene.
Yeah.
Also on Harrison Ford, there's quite a few Ford ad-libs in the film. Do you know any of them?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the famous one that everyone knows, that everyone kind of quotes. Everyone tries to be that cool. Like, if your missus goes, I love you, you go, I know. And it never works, does it? It never works. But just as Han is about to be frozen, Leia says, I love you, and Han replies, I know, as we all do. But the I know wasn't in the script, and Ford and Kershner came up with it together. And apparently Kasdan was furious that it got changed because he thought it was some of his best writing, and George Lucas didn't like it either, and was only convinced when they had a test screening and audiences just went crazy when it happened. Just thought it was absolutely fantastic. But I don't understand what Kasdan was worried about. How's that his best writing? I love you. What's he going to say? Nothing.
Well, in the script he wrote, do you know what Han's line was originally that Kasdan wrote?
That's what I need to know.
So Leia said, I love you, and Han replied, just remember that, Leia, because I'll be back.
Schwarzenegger.
Arnold.
That would be amazing.
I mean, yeah, if we're taking from Arnold, when Lando said they're going to freeze you in carbonite, Han should have said, you're not sending me to the cooler, surely.
How do you get a Batman and Robin reference into The Empire Strikes Back? John Barker, ladies and gentlemen.
There's another Harrison Ford ad-lib in there as well. When Lando's about to lead him into the trap, he offers his arm to Leia. Ford improvised Han coming up behind Leia and offering his arm to her at the same time and saying, you old smoothie, to Lando.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Right. Yeah, I like that bit.
We also meet 2 more supporting characters here who became pretty famous in their own right, in Lando Calrissian, the businessman who runs Bespin, played by Billy D. Williams, and Boba Fett, the bounty hunter who tracked them down, played by Jeremy Bulloch.
Yeah.
What do you think of those 2 as characters?
I really like Lando. I think he's got an instant presence to him, which you need, because if he's built up as someone Han trusts enough to go to hide out with him, he's got to have something about him. And I think Billy D. Williams does bring that. And it is a strange one because his character changes so fast. Really like these 20 minutes. You can't keep it up like, oh, no, he's a friend. No, wait, Leia doesn't trust him. Oh, actually, no, he seems okay. No, actually, he's betrayed everyone. Oh, no, he's going to save them. He's helping by the end. Like, it probably spins your head around. But at the end, I'm kind of okay with the fact that he's taken over the Falcon, because that should be a total no-no.
Yeah.
Like, anyone other than Han flying that should feel wrong, especially some dude we've only just met. But I'm like, okay, right, no, I can go with this. And I think Billy D. Williams deserves a lot of credit for one thing, just making sense of the character to begin with, and getting you to be on board with him by the end. So yeah, I really like Lando.
Yeah, he's the Apollo Creed to Han's Rocky, isn't he? But it doesn't take him 2 films to do it. It doesn't like half an hour.
Exactly. 20 minutes instead.
Yeah, I mean, originally Lando's name was Lando Kadar.
Yeah.
And one of the first ideas for him was to have him as a clone who survived the Clone Wars, which is pretty cool. He led legions of clones on a planet where they settled. Another idea had Lando as the descendant of survivors of the Clone Wars, born into a family who reproduced solely by cloning. Now that just, to me, it's just too complicated.
That's just weird.
Why does it have to be so complicated? That's just George Lucas all over. Let's have Lando as a clone, but he lives on a planet with just clones, and they reproduce just by being clones. Like, shut up, man.
Yeah, well, Billy D. Williams actually auditioned for the part of Han in Star Wars, but that didn't make him a shoe-in to play Lando. The first person Lucas actually offered the role to was Yaphet Kotto.
Oh, nice.
All right.
But he said no because he didn't want to be typecast in science fiction films after recently doing Parker in Alien.
Yeah, an Alien, yeah.
And that was when Billy D. Williams came in, and he said, Lando was much like me, a pretty cool guy. Brilliant. If he does say so himself.
I love that. Yes. No, I am a big fan of Boba Fett. Like I said, he was my favourite character from the series because he was just so mysterious and just so cool and just had like this real persona, and you didn't know who it was, and he was just like cool and Jedi, and he was like straight out of there. But in this, you see all the bounty hunters there, but none of them matter. Because Boba Fett's like, you just see Boba Fett, you're like, that's the guy. That's the guy right there.
No disintegrations. Brilliant.
Yeah. It's just no disintegration. Okay, I'll try my best. Maybe not, maybe I'll try. But he's not even scared of Darth Vader. He's just as you wish. Whatever. I'll do what I want to do. And I love that, and I just love the idea of bounty hunters, and I just loved that whole thing when I was a kid, and I watched that, and I just thought it's just so cool, of like just, it just really worked for me, even though he's the person who takes Han Solo away. I'm quite happy that it's him. Do you know what I mean? It's not like someone that you thought, he's not cool enough to take Han Solo away. Boba Fett is definitely cool enough to take Han Solo away.
Yeah.
So it totally works for me.
Yeah, he only has 5 lines in the film, but you're right, he's the only character in the whole film who's not scared of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
When he tracks the Falcon, sells that information to the Empire, then sticks around and takes Han off the Jabba the Hutt, where he gets paid again, and he gets the Empire to do all the work for him. He doesn't do anything and gets 2 paydays. Best bounty hunter ever.
Knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and he's played by Jeremy Bulloch, and if you look on his armour, if you look closely, you can see he's got a Wookiee scalp on there. But Bullock wasn't told what it was, so when he first put the costume on, he thought it was a hairpiece, so he put it on under the helmet, which ended up just sticking out the sides. And then Kershner saw him and just burst out laughing and was like, no, Jeremy, that's not what it's for.
That would look great.
Huge sequence there then, some big drama. The last time we see Han in the film, and one of Star Wars' most powerful sequences.
Absolutely.
Oh, easily.
I love you.
I know.
Moving on to the climax of the film now then, and it's another big one, isn't it? Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Having abandoned his Force training on Dagobah, Luke arrives at Bespin to save his friends. Doesn't go that well for Luke, does it?
Not really. No, he kind of fucks it a bit.
Arriving too late to save Han, he loses a lightsaber fight to Darth Vader before finding out, even worse, he's a son of Vader.
Yeah.
Even more massive this. Thoughts on the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader?
One of those moments where it's so iconic, I can't imagine how it felt watching it at the time.
Yeah,
because
too right. Yeah.
you'd have had so many kids who loved Star Wars and would have like flocked to the cinema to see this, and are now probably just traumatized out of their minds by how dark it's got.
Yeah.
And just when you think, right, it's probably going to be okay from now on, you've got this duel, which is brilliantly shot. It's really exciting. Love them flying around. But then, bam, off goes Luke's hand.
Yeah.
God almighty, what else is the film going to put you through? Because the film, it's just so confident in what it's doing here. It knows it's pushing the boundaries, but it doesn't care because it just knows this is the right thing to do. This is what we're going to do. We're going to chop the hand off the main character and we'll get away with it. And even now when I watch it, it's so like, it's still so shocking, just the violence of it, just like, bam, whipped straight off. Like, holy shit, did I just see that? But then right after that, again, Luke takes the big fall, and more proof of how Jedi can fall really great distances and be okay. I mean, he's fallen hundreds of feet here, not just 50 feet off the bottom of an AT-AT, and he's still okay, straighten at you, doesn't smash his spine to bits. You know, it's ridiculous, but I love it all the same. And then when he's hanging off the aerial at the bottom of Cloud City, I love that push in you get on Leia's face when she realises Luke's there. Tells Lando to go back and rescue him, and then obviously the TIE fighters are on the tail again. It's just fantastic. Love it all.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, this has to be the worst rescue mission ever by anybody. Luke leaves Dagobah all full of it. I've had a vision, only I can save my friends. He gets there, doesn't save anyone, or even help him escape, comes across Vader, gets his ass handed to him, and his hand chopped off, and gets given some psychological trauma to boot. He goes there to save his friends, and his friends end up saving him. Rubbish Jedi. But obviously, the lightsaber fight is brilliant. Vader appearing at the top of the stairs in his line, "You are not a Jedi yet." Fantastic storytelling, that. I like how Luke climbs the stairs and it's he who turns his lightsaber on first.
Yes.
He wants to fight Vader.
Like he does in the cave.
Fancies his chances, and he definitely shouldn't. But to be fair, he holds his own for a bit, and then Vader goes into like second gear, I suppose. And the plot twist, I mean, that'll never be topped. Surely. No. Not only is it a great twist, it happens in one of the most anticipated films ever made. Double whammy. It turns Star Wars from a good versus evil kind of fairy tale to the Skywalker saga, which is definitely for the best. To be fair though, if you tell someone you're their dad and they instantly try to kill themselves, you might want to have a look at yourself.
Yeah, but if you're Darth Vader, then that's the reaction you want.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
That's work. I've got quite a bit to say on this because I think there's a lot in this sequence that people kind of don't pick up on that isn't true, maybe isn't.
Westy theory is this?
Westy theories.
Lovely.
But it's just what I get from it, and I think that the fact of you watch him and like you said that Luke ignites his saber first and goes for it. It's just in this whole sequence, I just think Vader's just going easy on him all the way through it. Watch the whole thing. He's just going easy on him. He's just deflecting him. He's just moving him around. He's like, right, and Luke's like, well, okay, come on. Then he keeps going up and he's like, look, just stop. And it's just a real lesson. And just somebody just going like, calm down. And he's like using the force to like move stuff and just hit him and hits the window by accident. Luke flies out and then you get that reaction from Vader. He hasn't got any emotion on his face, but you get that reaction of like, oh shit, he's gone up the window, right? I'll go and get him, I'll talk to him. It's just this weird kind of discussion with his son. His son's just like coming late, pissed, and he's just like, look, man, calm down, doing this. And I do think that there's a thing that people don't really talk about, and that lightsaber that he's using is Anakin's lightsaber from the first film.
Yeah.
And he cuts it off his hand and cuts his hand off to just remove himself totally from Luke and remove himself totally from who he used to be.
Okay.
And I think that's why that's so significant in cutting the whole hand off and just making sure that a hand that grows back, which it does in Jedi, is reminiscent of the dark side with the black glove and the mechanics, which becomes Darth Vader itself. So I think that hand becomes almost like what Darth Vader has to be or what Anakin has to be and wanting him to become part of that whole psyche, which he is, which he does. I think it's a really father and son sequence, and I think if you have a son and if he does kick off, this is exactly what it's like trying to calm him down. So to me, it's a beautifully made piece of cinema and wonderful.
Well, Lucas obviously knew what he had with the big "I am your father" moment, so wanted to keep it a big secret. Have you heard what they did on the set to do that, specifically to poor David Prowse?
No.
Yeah. Well, he was a notorious blabbermouth, and he was always revealing plot points for the films because Lucas had the idea like a couple of years previously this was going to happen, and he'd vaguely mentioned to it. And apparently Prowse had gone to a convention and was just telling anyone who would listen, oh yeah, Vader, Luke's father, you know, that's what's going to happen in the next one.
Wow.
So, like,
unbelievable.
So to stop him continue doing it, because obviously, you know, before Twitter, so it wasn't going to get around that much, they gave Prowse a script which had the line, Obi-Wan killed your father, instead. But then they had to tell Hamill what the actual line was right before filming, so Hamill would give the correct reaction for it instead.
Wow.
Yeah, Mark Hamill said the Kershner pulled him to one side and said, now, I know this, and George knows this, and now you're going to know this, but if you tell anybody, Carrie, Harrison, anybody, we'll know it was you. Really menacing.
Yeah, there's a good story from the premiere as well. At the point when Vader said, I am your father, Harrison Ford leaned over to Mark Hamill and said, hey kid, you never fucking told me that. Which is testament to Hamill, really. How hard is that not to say?
And apparently Prowse was furious that he'd never been told the truth because he said, if I'd known, my acting would have been completely different. Well, I'm pretty sure he was standing there perfectly still at that point.
Yeah, you would have kept your fist closed. Or
Thing is, though, like this is back in the day when they made novelizations of films.
Yeah.
And the novelization came out a month earlier, which was written by a guy called Donald F. Glut. And obviously the big reveal is in there anyway, so, you know, it was probably known by a fair few people.
Yeah, different times.
Yeah.
I mean, if that happened now, it would have been posted on social media millions of times within a few hours.
Oh, yeah.
That whole sequence, though, one of the most iconic in Hollywood.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
And from there, we're at the end of the movie. Luke and Leia meet back up with the Rebel fleet, and with Luke recovering from his injuries, Chewie and Lando head off in the Falcon to rescue Han from Jabba the Hutt. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure why Lando was wearing Han's clothes. That's really weird.
It is really weird.
But apart from that, a satisfying climax for the film.
Oh.
Reception and awards.
Big things were expected at the box office for The Empire Strikes Back, and while it didn't perform as well as Star Wars, it was still a massive hit. From a final budget of $30.5 million, Empire grossed approximately $550 million worldwide. Wow. It took more than 5 times as much as any other film that year and was the second highest grossing film ever after Star Wars. So didn't do too badly.
Not too shabby.
No.
30 million's not bad either for that budget.
No, not at all. Before the film was released, though, Lucas did have some trouble from the Directors Guild of America regarding the credits.
Right.
Have you heard much about that?
Nope.
Yeah, it's all because of the opening crawl, which Lucas wanted to do that again, and therefore he wanted to run the credits at the end, like he did with Star Wars, but he only got away with that in the first place because back then they thought the film was going to be a flop, so they didn't really care what he did.
Yeah.
But obviously this time around, the new Empire was going to be massive, so they told him, no, the credits have to be at the start this time. So Lucas refused. The DGA tried to stop it being released, which failed. So then they handed out fines to Lucas and Kershner, $250,000 each. Lucas paid up both of those himself, and then he resigned from the DGA and the WGA, which is why for Return of the Jedi he hired Richard Marquand to direct that, because Lucas had to hire somebody who also wasn't a member of the Directors Guild.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's one of the first films, wasn't it? Because a lot of the films like in the 70s, late 70s, even early 80s, had all the credits at the front of the film.
Yeah.
Massive crawl at the front.
Practice,
one of the first ones to just be like, even Star Wars was probably the first film to just be like, that's the film, that's it. Credits are at the end. I don't. There's probably more, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one more iconic than Star Wars, really.
No.
Well, critics-wise, the film didn't receive the glowing reviews of Star Wars, but they were still positive. So Roger Ebert, the Artful Dodger, did he like it?
Rog.
I reckon he did.
He did. 4 stars out of 4, and he called it a visual extravaganza with fantastic storytelling that creates in us a sense of wonder.
Nice. Loves a miserable film, Rog, doesn't he?
He does.
He does.
Writing for Time, Gerald Clark said Empire surpasses Star Wars in several ways, including being more visually and artistically interesting.
True.
Andy said Yoda is the highlight, when he should have obviously said the highlight Yoda is.
Very nice.
Brilliant.
Janet Maslin had some good things to say about it.
Wow.
She said, it's a success because Star Wars was such an uncommonly hard act to follow. It's no small wonder that the first film had been followed at all. Though she had some criticisms for Lando as a character, and she said he was exaggeratedly unctuous, untrustworthy, and loaded with jive.
Wasn't that just the character? He has flares on, and he's great.
Loaded with jive.
That's it, just the flares.
Since then, of course, Empire's status has grown stronger and stronger through the years and now regularly features at the top end of greatest ever movies lists.
Yep.
In 2014, Empire magazine had a readers' poll where 250,000 people voted to find the greatest movie of all time, and Empire came out number 1.
Really?
The Godfather number 2. And today on Rotten Tomatoes, Empire has 94% from critics and 97% from audiences, and on IMDb, a huge 8.7 out of 10, number 15 on their top 250 list.
Yeah,
one place above The Matrix and one below Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Right.
At the Oscars, Empire won Best Sound and Best Visual Effects and was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Score. So Empire's a huge film nowadays, and it was that way straight out the gate, really. A box office mega hit, acclaimed critically, won a few awards, and now regarded as one of the great movie sequels.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's not much like it.
Sequels and influence.
The Empire Strikes Back was a sequel, of course, and has been followed by lots of other Star Wars films, including Lucas' prequel trilogy, the Disney sequel trilogy, and a few animations and anthology films as well.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about any of those
for
2 main reasons. Firstly, there's far too many. Yeah. We don't have time, and most of them are rubbish. And secondly, we now have a YouTube channel, and are planning to cover a few Star Wars movies there, maybe, so keep an eye out for those.
Yep.
What we do have, though, is a Patreon question on one of the later Star Wars films and Empire.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, Andy Silman. Hello, Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Andy has a question for us, and here it is.
Hi, guys. Andy here. Empire and Rogue One for me are the best in the series and make a great trilogy along with Star Wars, as they both have a darker tone to them. Which do you prefer?
Westy.
Out of Rogue One and Empire?
Yeah.
I'll have to say that I prefer Empire because Rogue One wouldn't be Rogue One without Empire. Really, it's a huge influence on that film. But I do love where they went with Rogue One. I do think it was a fantastic retelling of a prequel to Star Wars, and I love Darth Vader in that. But I do think they went a bit too far, because if Darth Vader was like that in Empire, it wouldn't be as good, because he could just throw Luke around and people flying everywhere. And I think they took that a little bit too far, but I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really good to see it updated for a new audience and a new generation. So I think Rogue One is my kids' Empire, but Empire is my Empire.
Yeah, I like Rogue One very much. It's far from perfect, and I think it could have been a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
I'll keep the details for if we ever do one of those videos on Rogue One, but I do like it a lot. The main thing they've got right for me is the visuals. It looks like Star Wars, or how I think Star Wars looks at its best.
It's got the right tone.
It's grounded and it's dirty. It's got some good world building. Classic Star Wars stuff that was completely overlooked in the Disney trilogy. Yeah. It's not as good as Empire, as it is narratively flawed sometimes, but Rogue One is easily the best Star Wars film outside the original trilogy for me.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's got the right tone, definitely.
Yeah, very much in agreement. I like the film a lot as well, but no, I can't put it anywhere near Empire. I do find, and I've always found the first 20 minutes of Rogue One a bit all over the place. I think it takes a while to settle into the story you want to tell. It jumps around from character to planet quite a lot, and like it's a bit hectic. And I've never liked the CGI Peter Cushing talking. I don't know why they just didn't recast it. I don't think that worked at all for me. They're the two main forces. But overall, I do like Rogue One a lot, actually. I think it is a very, very good film, like a lot. But it's no Empire.
Yeah, the last 20 minutes of Rogue One is really Empire Strikes Back.
It's pretty
the last
amazing.
20 minutes is worth your time.
It's fantastic.
It's worth your time.
A huge film, of course, Empire, and films of that size do tend to have a knock-on effect on Hollywood in the years that follow. How do you think we see the influence of Empire since it was released?
I think any blockbuster franchise that tries to go darker for a sequel or have a cliffhanger, so massive one that comes to mind is Avengers Infinity War, because that had a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And it works really well. It's a great cliffhanger. I remember watching the cinema being really pretty astounded by it, but the only thing is, you knew watching it, you only had to wait a year for the next one to come along to resolve it. Whereas with Empire, I don't know for sure, but I'm presuming no one even knew when Return of the Jedi was coming out, or even if it would come out. So to send an audience out like that is such a ballsy move, and I think a lot of films try to recreate that, but I don't think they're ever going to do it in the way that Empire did. And the other one I think really takes off from Star Wars in general, but particularly Empire, is the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, because that first Pirates film, it's very light in tone, the plot's really straightforward, it's really enjoyable, but then the sequel just brings in loads more characters, really tries to like expand the mythology, that particular world that it's set in. And it ends, I think, with Jack Sparrow being dragged off in a captivity beneath the sea by the Kraken, I think it is. And then the remaining characters have to rely on Jeffrey Rush's villainous character to form the rescue mission for the next film, which I think it's almost like beat for beat a rip-off of Empire in a lot of ways. Absolutely nowhere near as good. So yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, I think, really wants to be Star Wars and really wants to be Empire.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone knows that Empire was a big influence on blockbusters in general, but I think its influence on sequels specifically is just unparalleled. Before Empire, blockbuster sequels tended to be very much standalone stories. Think like James Bond. And Empire was the first that was a direct continuation of the story, where you had to see the first film to really understand what was going on, and that's been standard practice since. Big movie series usually follow a trilogy model. Back to the Future, The Dark Knight, The Matrix, Indiana Jones, Planet of the Apes, all trilogies. And that came directly from Star Wars and Empire. The open ending for the second film, The Matrix does that. Back to the Future Part 2, The Two Towers, all end with unresolved narratives leading into a third film. Again, directly taken from Empire. And mostly, I think, the darker second film has become a bit of a cliche of movie series now. The Dark Knight, Temple of Doom, Dawn of Planet of the Apes, all darker than the first films and all influenced by Empire. I wish more people would have taken influence from the departure and the story that we talked about that Empire made, instead of just rehashing the story from the first film. But I guess that's not as easy to do as just making it a bit darker. But, I mean, of course, Empire massively influential to this day, and I think you'll still see Empire's influence 50 years from now, when we're all dead. Long gone.
Cheapy way of putting it.
Well, ending the podcast like Empire.
just end on that word.
When we're all dead.
And Westy, what about you and the influence of Empire?
I've got nothing else to say. Yeah, I mean, it's one of them staples where you just kind of go, you know, if it wasn't for Empire, would you have such an output from James Cameron? Would he have the guts to make Aliens if he hadn't seen Empire Strikes Back? You know, it's one of them films where you just watch it and go, that was something that was just so massive in the 77 Star Wars. And then we're taking it somewhere else and we're doing something else with it, and we're giving it a new lease of life, and we're exploring it in a dramatic tone and an emotional tone. And to me, yes, it is darker, but it's also more realistic. It's more, you can buy into it, and I think there's a humanitarian kind of vibe to it where every character becomes a human being and every character has an emotion, whereas in Star Wars that wasn't very evident, but in this it definitely is. And I think a lot of people watched Empire Strikes Back and went, holy shit, that's a sci-fi film with spaceships and Darth Vader, but I still feel something from it. So no matter what you do, no matter what your genre is, you can still create that feeling. And I think that's what Empire did, and I think that's still what Empire does, to be honest. Like, it's a massive film.
Empire carried on the phenomenon that was Star Wars and made it even bigger. Lots of sequels, most of them not very good for us. But as for Empire, I think its influence is beyond question.
Beyond question.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely agree.
All the right movies ranking.
So we're at the end of our Empire Strikes Back episode. We've been through the full behind-the-scenes story, and now's the time when we decide where the film will sit in the All the Right Movies leaderboard. So Matt, do you want to start the ball rolling? Your summary and score for the Empire Strikes Back, please.
For me, Star Wars in general, I don't quite have the love for it that other people do. I think out of us three, I think you two are bigger fans than I am. So I don't really bring that nostalgic viewpoint to this. Like, as a kid, I just always preferred the indie films. So I know when we get around to doing Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, I know for a fact I'll be giving those marks out of pure nostalgia because I can't separate it from those. Whereas with Star Wars, I can separate it a little bit. So every mark that I want to give Empire, for me, it has to be really earned. And it's a film that I look at and go, special effects, music, production design, all incredible. These characters are great. The new characters are great. To be honest, a lot of that I think is to be expected. That shouldn't surprise anyone considering how established all that stuff is in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But what I think elevates this one is how that really unlikely choice of director works so well.
Yeah.
And I think what adds to that is that script, because the storytelling choices in this film are just so brave. And they're so clever, and they just work incredibly well. And they are the elements more than anything else that I think every other franchise that has come after desperately wants to copy. And I don't think anything else, whether it's Nolan's Batman films, whether it's Marvel, whether it's Lord of the Rings, I don't think any of them have come close to returning to a particular cinematic world and then shaking it and turning it upside down and then going, yeah, that's what it looks like now. In the way that Empire does. It's just so brave.
Yeah.
And ultimately, for me, it's really easy. When I did Star Wars, I gave that a 9. Empire is, in my opinion, better than that film in every department, so it's a well-deserved and completely earned 10 for me.
Oof.
Nice.
Full marks. Yeah, I mean, Star Wars is some act to try and follow. The biggest film ever made at the time, Hollywood's biggest phenomenon. The pressure and expectation that Lucas and his whole team was under, they could have easily buckled, and this could have been a turkey.
Yeah.
But obviously it's not. If they made something that just came anywhere close to the original, that would have been an achievement. But to make a film that's widely regarded as being better than Star Wars, we take that for granted now, but it's almost beyond belief that they pulled that off.
Yeah, it really is.
And the way they did it, the tone changes like we talked about, the story structure completely changes like we talked about. It's a very different film when the easy thing to do would have been to replicate the first one. Very different, but still definitely feels like it's of a piece with Star Wars as well.
Yeah.
So for the great vision from Lucas, excellent direction from Irvin Kershner, great writing from Lawrence Kasdan, top-notch performances from the cast, world-class creativity from John Williams, ILM, Peter Sashitsky, Ben Bird, John Molos, Ralph McQuarrie. It's something special.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the greatest blockbuster sequel ever, and yes, for me, it's getting 10 out of 10.
Nice.
Lovely.
And Westy, your summary and score for Empire, please.
It's a 5. It's all right.
Out of 5.
No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding. It's great. It's bold. It's, like Matt said, it's very brave. Like you said, John, it's just it takes Star Wars and progresses it into a way that you didn't really need it to progress, but you did once you'd seen it. It's an amazing film from a character point of view. It's an amazing film from a visual point of view in every step, and it's got a lot to say, and it's got a lot of depth. And to bring that to the sci-fi genre in 1980 is nothing short of an absolute miracle, and it still works now. And it's just brilliant. It's just so entertaining. It's just so good. It's just everything in the right place. And for me, yeah, it's a 10.
Of course. So another benefit of being a Patreon is that your vote will count for a lot in deciding the overall scores for movies we cover. So some of our patrons comment on Empire. Derek Noonan said, I remember waiting in a line around the block at Evanston Theatre with my dad to get in to see this movie. Wow. That entire experience and my love for this film are the earliest and still one of the fondest memories I have of cinema.
Amazing.
10 all day.
Lovely that.
Same.
Lovely.
Same.
Hilton Thompson said, my mum blagged my brother and I out of school to see Return of the Jedi as she was so desperate to know what happened to Han. That was from all the emotion she felt at the end of this film.
Yes.
The opening is great, the middle pulls you into the character developments, and the ending is jaw-droppingly good. I'm going to watch it again tonight.
That's
10.
parenting 101.
No question.
Yeah, that's parenting done right.
Amazing. It is right, too right.
Great, man.
Yes.
And Paul Wilson said, when Star Wars was released in 1977, I was 4. So my first opportunity to watch it was the UK premiere on ITV at 7:15 p.m. on Sunday the 24th of October 1982. Made an impact on Paul, do you think?
Oh, do you know the fucking day?
In 1984, a schoolmate was given Empire on VHS video, and I'll never forget the excitement of going round his house to watch it for the first time.
Aye, right.
Imagine being really excited to see a Star Wars film and it being Empire, instead of being really excited to see a Star Wars film and it being The Phantom Menace, like we got.
And we still made myself love that film at the time.
Convinced myself it was good.
Yeah, that was great. That was really good.
Those are just 3 of the Patreon comments we received, but that was the general theme. Big memories surrounding the original Star Wars films and family. I mean, these are like generation and childhood defining films for people, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So important.
And altogether, our Twitter followers ranked the film as, what do you think? Out of 10.
Easy 10, I reckon.
10, hasn't it? Come on.
It's got to be.
Of course it was.
Everyone loves it. Everyone loves it.
It was a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that gives The Empire Strikes Back 40 out of 40 in total.
Boom.
And it puts it 3rd on the all-time list behind The Godfather and The Matrix, surprisingly.
All right, okay.
That works for me.
Wow.
That works for me.
So that's everything we have on Empire. Hopefully we haven't failed you for the last time. As clumsy as we are stupid.
Yeah. Apology accepted.
Next time, excuses are like assholes and Westy looking PI are full of them as they talk Charlie Sheen in Vietnam as they go all in on Oliver Stone's Oscar-winning war classic, Platoon.
Oof.
One of your favourites, Westy?
It is one of my favourite films of all time. Yeah, it's a very, really, really special film for me, so I'm super looking forward to talking about that. Yeah, definitely.
Great. To find out more about becoming a Patreon, accessing our archive, bonus episodes and supporting us in what we do, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies. Please subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And socially, you can keep up with All The Right Movies on Twitter, where we are at AT-ATs. Take a look at our videos on YouTube if you've not yet, which is at youtube.com/alltherightmovies. On Instagram, we are at allthe_rightmovies. You can find our movie group on Facebook to join in with all the movie chat and fun. And our website is alltherightmovies.com.
Yes, it is.
We're all off now to make a deal that'll keep the Empire out of here forever. So come back in 2 weeks, though, for Platoon.
Yes, please do, guys. Do.
I'll see you in hell.